Hello, everyone. We're going to get started finally, and thank you for your patience. We have a few technical difficulties. Yeah, what a surprise, right? Here we are. But thank you all very much for coming this evening. And my name is Rhonda Dugan, and I am the supervisor here in Mono County for District 2. Sorry, you have to follow around. Note for later there. And thank you all for coming here this evening, and I want to thank our representatives from SCE. And I also want to introduce a few other people that are here tonight representing your elected officials. We have back over there at the snack bar, I have our the Mono County Supervisor Linda Salcido. She's the chair of our board, and she came to join us tonight. And then also Trina Oral, a supervisor from Inyo County, is here. And I saw Jen Rozier. There you are, standing right in front of me. Wrong glasses, sorry. And she is also supervisor because these two ladies have part of the dreaded Bircham circuit in their districts along with me. So we are sisters together in the saga, and we all feel your pain. And I appreciate everyone's comments that came through ahead of time that gave us an opportunity to communicate with Southern California Edison and allow them to maybe come with some answers. And just want to let you know how things are going to go this evening. And thank you for those coming in here in person. Appreciate that. Also, I have my CAO, Sandra Moberly, here too. She's over, the lady in green in the corner. And wait a minute, there you are. I saw you come in. Paul McFarland from the Mono Basin. And there's three of us. That makes a Brown Act violation. We're not going to do anything. This is not a public meeting. It's SCE and your meeting. And I just wanted to make that really clear. And they've come out here in person to discuss the issues there along the circuit. And maybe we can come up with some solutions, maybe learn some things. We always learn something every time we get together and share. So you're going to hear, I'm going to turn it over to Matt Perullo, who is our government affairs liaison for SCE here, and we're going to have a presentation from SCE. They're going to be answering and giving you an update on the things that they have already done and some solutions. And then we're going to have plenty of time for questions and answers. Hopefully more answers than questions, but we're going to start with the room first, and then we have about 35 people online listening in, and they will get a chance to. The only thing I ask is something that should be easy. We're all friends here. We're all neighbors. We're all in the same thing together. Let's make sure this is productive, because effective advocacy is what gets things done. And just to do that, we have coffee and cookies over here and some hot tea there. There's nothing in the coffee. It's not decaf. I'm sorry. It's fully leaded. And that may be a good or bad thing. And if you care, the Dodgers are up 1-0. So I appreciate your time. Some of you would rather be somewhere else, but I will be, if it gets really heated, I'll be coming in with a score. And if the lights go out, the first thing we're going to check is maybe the cord on my 1950s percolator, because that thing is probably not rated to be plugged into any 21st century wall, but we'll take care of that. So be good. Thank you very much for coming here. Appreciate your civility, appreciate your passion, and let's see if we can work together. Thanks.
Okay, how's that? All right, awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you, Supervisor Dugan and our other elected officials in the room. I am Matt Perullo, the Government Affairs Manager for the Eastern Sierra region from Bridgeport to Death Valley. And if I am already unpopular, I might add that I'm a San Diego Padres fan. My team lost today, but get early. So very pleased to be here. Like Rhonda said, we hear your pain, right? The Bertram Circuit in particular, and really this is not just a Bertram issue. This is a regional issue, a state of California issue, and Intermountain West issue, right? As we deal with our, implementing our wildfire mitigation plan, our PSPS policies, we understand it's frustrating. I am also an SCE customer on a circuit fed by which transects a high fire risk area. I have not had the same experience. I won't own that many of you folks have, but many of our employees here have. Like Rhonda said, we're all friends. We are of this community. We served this community for 100 years. We understand the issues. We're working to resolve the issues and work with each of you to make this better and hopefully, like she said, provide some answers to questions. So I'm joined today by experts in Southern California, Edison, from wildfire and meteorology, fire science from our business resiliency department, our field engineering, got our district manager here, customer programs manager. So we're trying to cover, like Rhonda said, really answer all the questions that we've received up till now during the presentation. So quickly on housekeeping. Quick note, this meeting is being recorded. It'll be available online. I'm sure the county will host it. SCE will also host it on our webpage along with the presentation. If you can't see or if there's anything else that you want to look into further. We will try to address all questions through the presentation, so please hold your comments. Like she said, online, I believe County IT, and thank you, by the way, County IT, this is something. I mean, this is impressive. And thanks for mobilizing so quickly and getting this set up. It's awesome. So please, if you're a virtual user, please submit your questions via the chat function, and then the county's offered to MC our Q&A and ask those questions. And then, please keep only questions that are relevant to the presentation. We touch a lot of different aspects here in the Eastern Sierra, but we're all here to talk wildfire and PSPS. So let's do that. You can always ask me after the presentation. We're also joined by our consumer affairs representative in the back of the room. So if there's other questions not relevant to wildfire, PSPS, billing questions, et cetera, you can grab any one of us. We'll try to answer it for you. And then lastly, if we're unable to answer a question, you have a follow-up, you can email this address right here, wildfireoutreach@sce.com. And like I said, oops, my clicker's not clicking. Can you maybe advance me one? Like I said, I'm familiar with the issues. I've heard everything, I think, from that Edison is playing God in the Eastern Sierra, that we are taking your livelihoods too lightly, that we're implementing PSPS, that our weather and meteorology is not accurate, doesn't accurately reflect the conditions on the ground, doesn't accurately reflect the risk in the region. I've heard lack of trust in Edison, something that we're hoping to repair tonight and explain what we're doing and why. That's great. Oh yeah, actually stay on that for me, please. Sorry. It seems my clicker's working again. I've got clicker. I'm good. So at Edison, our core value is always safety. So just want to open up very quickly with a safety moment before we get going with the material. And a quick note, restrooms are over here if anybody needs them. We've got exits 1, 2, 3, and 4 here. Jason, thank you for taping down the slips, trips, and falls there, electrical cord. And then our safety moment is just a reminder with down safety lines. We just turned the calendar into autumn here. We'll be in winter operations soon. Wet, heavy snow does bring lines down on occasion. It's not often, but occasionally. And we want to be mindful of those. Please stay at least 100 feet away and warn others of the hazard from a safe location. Dial 911. We have policies and procedures in place for dispatch to get our troublemen, our crews out there to deal with that hazard. And thank you I see some fire department folks here today. You're often the ones that get the call to make the scene safe. So thank you for that. And another click. I'm not clicking again. Thanks. So how did we get here? Where are we going? And what are we thinking? What are we knowing? So what we know is that Eastern Sierra wildfire season is year-round. High winds, low humidity, and dry fire-prone vegetation contribute to high wildfire risk all months of the year. I included these two items because these are not SCE products. Also, just an awesome-looking graphic from CAL FIRE and White Bark Institute and some of the local partners here, building awareness around fire risk. And then this excerpt from the 40 Acres Community Wildfire Protection Plan I included. It's very recent, as recent as 2023. The 40 Acres community and surrounding environment consists of diverse landscapes that produce a complex wildfire setting due to variable topography, dead and down vegetation, and an assortment of vegetation types. This is certainly true of the 40 Acres community, as it is for large portions of the Bertram Circuit and really for the entire region in parts. And then this graphic here, I recall working for the Army in 2016, I believe it was, when the Sobranas fire popped off. At the time, that was the largest and most destructive wildfire in state history. It was soon eclipsed by Creek Fire, among many others. We've had recent fires in both Mono and Inyo counties within this year. Obviously, the Mountain View Fire in 2020, the Creek Fire also in 2020, which came within about 5 miles of Mammoth Lakes. The risk is real. It is present. I don't think anybody in this room disagrees with that. I think you just like to understand how we are coming to make our decisions related to PSPS and what we're doing about it. So that's what we hope to answer today. Could you give me one more slide, please? Oh, well, like I said, I think I've heard most of the chief complaints. We hope to address them all. We have questions about microgrids, about how we make our decisions, what our weather stations do, how we use our live field observers, how we're hardening the grid, when will that work be completed by, and just what is that going to accomplish. So we'll hope to answer all those questions and then leave plenty of time at the end for Q&A. And with that, I'll pass to my colleague, Crystal Chambers.
Thanks so much, Matt. And thanks. That's the wrong one. There we go. Thanks so much for having us out here. Thanks so much for joining us and taking the time. My name is Crystal Chambers. You can go to the next slide. And I'm going to be speaking on behalf today of our, we call them weather science, but our meteorologist and our fire scientist team as well. My team, in addition to weather services, meteorology, fire science, we also run the HD camera network as well as the weather station network. So we're going to talk a little bit about those two and talk a little bit about how we get to that point of activating a team and sending out notifications and then getting to the point too of, in some cases, de-energizing and talk through that process a little bit. So for this graphic here, I mean, it's a nice little graphic there that we kept in here to just kind of show a little bit high level what we're talking about when we're talking about the decision we get to make notifications and then de-energize. So we talk about the winds. The winds are definitely one of the top driving factors, but they are just a factor, right? We're talking about fuels. We're talking about fuel moisture. We are really fortunate at Edison that at this point we have, and we're going to talk about this more extensively in a little bit, a really extensive weather station network. And that extensive weather station network is feeding models, it's feeding data, it's aligned with our poles, our infrastructure, our stuff out there across the circuits and across the area. And that weather information really starts to, it goes in, it feeds the models, it feeds into our folks. And then what we're really looking for is how that data and that information then aligns with the forecasts and the pre-planning. But it doesn't all come down to just the forecast and the pre-planning, right? It's not only going off of the data. It's not only going off of the forecast. It then is really going to that real-time information that we're seeing, whether through live field observers or those real-time data reads that we're pulling from those poles and from those weather stations. So I wanted to keep this graphic in because it really shows a little bit the process. That data is important, but it's not the only thing. The weather station information is super important. It's not the only thing. That's coming together with a real team of experts. They're very about all this and are trying to do the right thing for the communities, do the right thing for public safety in making those recommendations to then monitor and have live field observers out there monitoring specific locations and circuits. All right, so you can go to this next one. So as Matt mentioned, and as everyone in this room is very well aware, we really have elevated concern, and we have a concern when we're looking at significant winds especially before we get into this winter precipitation time. So I know we got some moisture recently. It unfortunately was not a season ending level of precipitation just yet. So we're keeping a very close eye on things. The fuels are definitely more moist than they have been, right? We've had a little bit of a break here. We are hoping that break continues. We're not seeing anything in the immediate forecast, but it wasn't necessarily a season ending event. So we're keeping a close eye on that. And then as you guys know, when we do get into that winter precipitation, we can zero for a while. So the level of concern that we get to, like I mentioned, it's really taking that data in. It's also taking in a lot of historical models. So historical fire activity, historical winds that we've seen. It's very specific to this area, but we're of course taking in other factors and other fire activity that we've seen throughout California. And we of course have a lot of data and history there. So a couple other notes that we wanted to talk about here too. I wanted to talk a little bit about the term fuel loading. I don't know if you guys have heard that term, fuel loading. Winds, like I said, driving factor, but the fuels are also very much what we're looking at, right? It's why the activity of fires is different in the mountain regions than it is in the desert. And the fuel loading becomes a really significant factor when we're looking at fire activity and how much and how quickly and how broadly a fire can spread. So we're looking at the fuels, we're looking at the types of, we're looking at moisture as well. So when that combines with the wind, that's where we get, of course, as you guys know, PSPS conditions. So for the remainder of this season too, like I said, rain so far has not been season ending just yet, but it has lowered the risk. As of now, we are expecting potentially above average temperatures this fall, not extraordinarily so, but a little bit warmer than we usually see. And so we are still looking at the possibility of large fires before the onset of that winter precipitation. So I can't unfortunately say that we're completely out of the woods just yet, but we are hoping that we continue to have a bit of reprieve from windy activity until we get that winter precipitation. All right, this next slide shows what we're really, some of the data and information really shows what we're talking about when we're talking about fuel moisture. And so that top one up there is, we call this the fuels index. So that one up top there is from 4th of July. So we were having quite a bit of PSPS activity in early July. We were seeing those fuel dryness was elevated. It was higher than we like. It was higher than we were comfortable with. Oh, okay. Sorry, there were signals. So I was like, I wasn't sure if I was the one messing, if I was, I've been known to, accidentally hit the wrong button there. So we were seeing that in early July, and on the lower one, we have some much more recent data, still a couple weeks old now, but you're seeing that September 18th, that fuel moisture is going down and is going to go down. And that was before we got that precipitation. Yes, sir. This was, I need to double check the specific circuit. I don't have that in my notes right now. Yeah. Sorry. Thank you. Okay. So yes, so we'll get that information. I'll ping the person on site. Yes. We could find one for sure, but yeah, what we're trying to show with this one and what you can see with this one too, right, is it's not exclusively wind. And what we can see sometimes, and we totally hear it too, is there have been times where it has been quite windy up here. I know I was just talking with someone, the significant wind conditions just a couple of days ago, but it's that wind combined with the fuel loading. It's that wind combined with the dryness. And so you will have times where it seems windy, where it seems very significantly windy and there's not PSPS conditions. And there will be other times where it seems a normal windy day. And it might be a relatively normal windy day, but if the fuel conditions are there, that's where we get that elevated concern. And it really is all those factors combining to getting us to a PSPS decision. Okay. So the sampling sites the sampling sites are listed on a couple of resources that we can share at the end, because our weather station information is online and our fuel sampling site locations are also online. It's an interesting process that they do to get those fuel sample. It literally is somebody, you know, on the side of the road in very specific predetermined locations, gathering fuels. There's a whole scientific process for it that's actually pretty interesting about weighing fuels before and after a set period of time and stuff like that.
The station never even recorded 20 miles per hour in the whole time. Mustang Mesa was never shut off at this time.
Real quick, we are hoping to get there if we're able to just hold it till the end and work through this, and then we can come back to any of these slides and
okay.
any of the information. Yeah, we got a lot of ground to cover. So
Okay.
yeah, thanks for the patience. Yeah.
And yeah, and I will try to go pretty quickly because I know we do want to give lots and lots of time to Q&A.
We'll get you. We're not leaving.
Yeah. So this. For sure. For sure. And that was a comment for those online about getting to the heart of why folks are here, right? The presentation is nice, but getting to the Q&A and getting to the specifics of why we're turning off the power when we're turning off the power. So I'll go quickly through the remainder of mine. So this next one, and it does, I think, speak to this question a little bit too, or speaks broadly to the questions of it's not very windy where this circuit is serving or residences. It's very windy at this specific location. Why are we turning the power off? And is this a one for one every single time necessarily? But for most of our circuits, if you look at the left, you're seeing NOAA-based model averages. So our National Weather Service, NOAA, they've got a lot of great resources. Historically and still, they are most focused on forecasting for where people live, of course, right? They're focused on where residences are, where communities are. That's their main focus. Our weather station network is where our assets are, where our poles are, where our wires are, where we could see conditions where vegetation, tree branches, other things happen that run into our equipment, or where a fire could spark because of our equipment. So we've located those weather stations. So you look on the right, and that's what we are seeing based on our weather stations, because we've positioned those weather stations where we need them to make determinations on our equipment. And so not for every single circuit, but for a lot of circuits and a lot of activity, sometimes what you will see is, hey, it's not windy at this one location. It's not windy at this house. It's not windy as I'm experiencing it on this circuit, but it very well could be somewhere else. I use my house as an example too. So I am also an Edison customer. I'm also on a PSPS circuit that's not impacted nearly as much as you guys are, but literally right across the street is a completely different circuit. And that circuit winds all the way up into the mountain. And that circuit gets turned off a lot. Literally my neighbors 15 feet away, they lose power much more frequently than I do. And so it is one of the very, very difficult things about our infrastructure, about the Bertram circuit, about these circuits, is where they traverse, how they move through the mountains, how they move through vegetation, how they move through our communities. It is not a beautiful grid as much as I would like it to be. Yes, sir. We're going to so I think the next one, let's move to the next one because it does show this area. That was just a good example that we had, like the NOAA data of like quite literally the difference in what you might see in like a weather app or the NOAA website versus what our stuff is showing. So that was just an example there, not this area. This one is showing our pole top weather stations for this area. So across our entire service area, we have over 1,800 weather stations. We have more weather stations than anybody at this point. Like we really do. And that includes 100 in this, what we call district, in the Mammoth Bishop district, which is an Edison designation for this area. You'll hear a bit more about that in a little bit. But again, we have positioned these to give us the best information we possibly can. and to give us the best information, not only real time, but to help evolve our knowledge and understanding of activity in this area. So I think that's the other important thing that I know I am committed to, my team is committed to, our whole operating group is committed to, is continuously improving and evolving this program too, right? So having this granular data, having this information in the locations where we are actually seeing the weather, where we actually have our assets, is also really important to make sure that we're getting better and we are actually seeing how our equipment performs. We're actually seeing what activity we see in the area. We're actually seeing what fire activity is associated in this specific area so that we can evolve it and get better at this and ideally not be here, right? Again. Not be here again, but not be in this situation again, because we don't like this either. We don't want this either. And so that's the other piece of all of this as well, is that constant improvement and constant evolution, so that we're doing better for our communities, we're doing better for our customers, and we're doing better for our assets and our investments too. Yes. For sure. So no. So the question in the audience was, what specifically does the weather station measure in addition to wind? I got to thank my colleague for putting this slide in, because I wasn't going to put the slide in. So this is a sample, actually, a picture of one of our weather stations and everything that it's measuring, or how it's measuring stuff. So it's measuring temperature. It's measuring real-time humidity. So we're getting temperature, humidity, and wind. It has its own little solar thing there. Is out, we still do have that. And then it is logging that data. It's real time communicating back to our operations center, back to our incident management team if we're activated. And then the fuel loading is so the fuel loading is done on a regular cadence as well. That humidity of the fuels, the like how I would say, like almost like fuel density, right? And yes. Yeah. So I would need to get those specific locations for this region. I don't have those in front of me right now. It is physically done. So it is. So it's done. It's done every 2 weeks. So people are physically going out every 2 weeks, and it is not the only factor. It is a factor, a leading indicator, if you will, an indicator to us of the direction things are going, right? So you've got the real humidity, you've got the winds, you've got the temperature, and the fuel moisture levels every 2 weeks, which are a factor, not the only factor. And that is physically done. And it's so they go out, they're like quite literally taking clippings of both dead vegetation and live vegetation. So you have dead vegetation moisture, live vegetation moisture, and we're tracking that. And then over time too, we're seeing, you see the trends, and we see where you see spikes after precipitation and dryness and everything like that. And so it is a factor. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm going to have Jude go to her section. She's going to cover a bunch of this, and if we don't cover those questions to your satisfaction, we will absolutely make sure we cover them before we leave. But Jude's covering a lot of that in hers.
Yeah, sorry, just wanted to double down. Please do hold the questions. Folks online cannot hear you when you ask it. I understand, like it's germane to what we're talking about right now, is why you're asking it. Just hold it. We will get to it, I promise. But I think Jude's going to cover some of this right now from business resiliency. So bear with us, please. Again, we're not leaving. Going to answer every question. Okay. Thank you.
All right. I'm Jude Schneider, and Chris are actually colleagues in business resiliency. That's our emergency operations group within SCE. So we're the ones as a team who are thinking about emergencies, thinking about what can go wrong, thinking about what we need to be prepared for, thinking about risk. We have 8 meteorologists, 3 fire scientists, seismologist, structural engineer, and we look very data-driven at risk for all the risks for all of our service area. I want to take a step back and thank the supervisor for having us here, and also thank Matt. You don't know this, but Matt is probably the best GRM in our group, and he has your ear, we know, and he has our ear, which is why we're all here. So I want to just give a word of thanks to him and for getting so many of you here. So I'm going to go through some of the details, some of the science behind what we do. This should help your question back there, because I want to try and make clear what all we're thinking of and how we go about our decisions. Again, if you can hold questions to the end, hopefully this will bring some clarity. I don't think what I'm going to say is going to make you really happy, but it should provide some clarity. This is the thing that's not going to make anyone happy. So I'm just going to start with it. Anyone with a military background knows this is bottom line up front. So bluff. So we looked this past year at the fires that we'd had historically, and the wind and fire and fuel conditions, and realized that we needed to be more conservative about fire risk. So because of that, we made some adjustments to our formulas that are actually making PSPS more common and last longer. We did this back in the spring, and already over the summer, our predictions have proved true. We are like seeing 20 to 40% more events, and they're lasting longer. We do this because we want to protect safety, and going back to the chart that Matt showed at the beginning, the fire risk is increasing exponentially. There are a lot of reasons for it. We can't stop the reasons for it. We can only react. And so we're reacting. Now, I'm talking about PSPS, but my colleagues are going to talk about grid hardening and some of the things we're doing to try and mitigate and alleviate that. So that's coming. So I'm giving you the bad news. They're going to give you the better news. A couple other things this is a change from last year. We just thought we would share this change. We monitor 24/7 because we don't only turn off power once we're already in an emergency operation and looking, because sometimes the winds will come up arbitrarily and strongly, and we've only done this once, but we have turned off power in advance of notifications because we're now looking at it all the time. There's a third update, and I know Karen in the back there had mentioned being in PSPS area newly, and we have looked at our boundaries for high fire risk areas, and it doesn't affect a lot of people, which is why we didn't put it on the slide, but it does affect Mustang Mesa, that there are some customers who are officially in PSPS high fire risk areas that hadn't been previously. So that's part of your answer, but not all of it, the rest of your answer. But I'm going to get back through the rest of your answer. I just want to kind of talk through. I want to talk through what our terminology means, what it doesn't mean, where we are. So this slide here is kind of a lot of fact and a lot of technology and science here. And I'm not a scientist, so I'm going to try and explain it the best that I can. But we have something called the Fire Potential Index. And that's the formula we use to understand fire threat. And everything that Crystal was saying about fuel loading, that's part of it. We look at, it's complex, but we look at live fuel moisture. That is, that's the test tube look at what's, how much moisture is left, how fast are things going to burn. Dead fuel moisture, similarly, we look at the humidity, and we come up with a number. We also have high fire risk areas, and those high fire risk areas are almost exactly the same as the CPUC high fire risk areas. However, and this is really confusing, and I want to clarify, there's another high fire threat area map, which is a California insurance map. This has come out in the last year, and people are thoroughly confused. In fact, our colleagues were confused about this at the beginning too. We don't have anything to do with that map. So if you are being told you need different insurance or more insurance, that's from that other high fire risk threat map, not ours. We're our high fire risk is about our infrastructure and about the potential of our utility causing a wildfire. That's the extent of it. So we are not concerned about whether your plantings are too close to your garage. We're concerned about whether their trees are too close to our wires. And that's the difference between them. You'll see here, you're in what's called, you're up here in this corner. You're in tier 2 high fire risk area. Your FPI is 13. The scale is 1 to 17. Most of our high fire risk area, except for a small piece, the threshold that we're looking at is that 13. We do discount that if there are more fires in the area, a bigger event. And when we're talking about being more conservative, we are discounting it more. That's the FPI thresholds are set for each higher climate zones. And you can see already we've got too many acronyms. We've got the FCZs and the HFRAs and the FBI, but wanted to give you this sort of foundation because this is what we talk about when we're making these decisions. Second piece of it, and I think you mentioned this, is wind. And we're concerned about 2 levels of wind. The first level of wind is when things could hit our wires, cause a spark. That spark can fall down and cause a fire. It could be a tumbleweed. It could be a squirrel. It could be, and we've seen this, tarps and trampolines and all sorts of things in a heavy wind get up there into the wires. We're going to talk about covered conductor, which is covering for the wire, just simply covering our conductor. We have a few of these, we can pass them around. If we don't have covered conductor, then we have a lower wind threshold, and it's a National Weather Service wind advisory level, which is 31 miles per hour sustained or 46 miles per hour gusts. And then for the covered conductor, there's a higher threshold, and that is 40 miles per hour sustained or 58 miles per hour gusts. And that's when poles can topple over. That's when trees can hit into the wires. That's when, even if we cover the wire, it doesn't keep our wires safe from potential fire activity. So those are the 2 numbers. And as we move towards more covered conductor, we're moving towards those higher speeds. Right now, full circuits, we look at this by full circuit or circuit segments. And I think we're going to move on. And I think Ryan's going to talk a little about that. So I'm not going to talk more about this, just to know that we do have triggers that can be lower. Again, this is our conservative approach this year. As we're approaching these thresholds, we might make the decision to de-energize in order that when we get to the place where we need to be de-energized, we're de-energized and we're not waiting too long. We're going to answer, all right, that was a good one. Thank you. I want to talk about our notification process, and I'm going to actually spend a couple of slides on this because this is also of some concern to our communities. And I'm going to this is the TikTok of how PSPS works. So 4 to 7 days in advance, we're seeing those forecasts and we're seeing a potential for PSPS activity. 3 days ahead, we will activate our emergency response group, our what's called the IMT, incident management team. It follows federal guidelines. And we'll start notifying customers and our public safety partners. We used to notify our customers 2 days out and give the counties and the jurisdictions and the critical infrastructure customers an extra day. Now we're notifying everybody 3 days out. So you'll notice this is a change. We do daily updates. The update might pull you in or pull you out. As you know, as we know, weather forecasts are sort of become more granular as they become closer. So we're becoming more accurate in those days in advance. 1 to 4 hours in advance of where we think your wind is going to hit the threshold, we will send you an expected shut-off notification. Now, once we've sent that, we don't resend it. We used to resend it and people were just like screaming enough because we sent it every 4 hours, 24 hours a day, because it's an emergency notification and we can't not shut and not send it. So Now we only send one of those. Send another notification when the power is shut off, again when restoration begins, and again when the power is restored. A note about the one about the when the power is restored. If we send you a notification that your power has been restored and it's not restored, you should call in the outage, because that means something else that we don't know has gone on, because generally we're pretty good about when it's restored as far as we know it's restored. I want to talk about our field operations. We have people in the field at every step of every PSPS event. Starting in that 7-day window, we're looking to see if there's any damage that could be significant, that could make a line more vulnerable. And if there is, we will try and repair it in advance of the event hitting. Then during the event, we have live field operators who are standing by. Now, we showed you the picture of the weather stations. We also have what are called kestrels, which are handheld weather stations. And every one of those live field observers has a kestrel. So if there's some concern about whether or not the wind has hit the threshold, they have them on their own long stick, so they can go up either higher or lower to assess what the wind is really like, if there's some discrepancy there. And then the last one I want to tell you about, and again, this is a sensitive one, restoration patrol. We'll tell you when, we'll give you a period of concern for the event. We'll say the period of concern ends at noon, but that doesn't mean we're going to turn your back on at noon. That means at noon we start the patrol, and that average takes about 6 hours. In some areas we require patrol, which means we need to do it in daylight. And we look at every line. You can see that picture of some damage we found during the January wind events. And we need to make sure that we cure and fix every pole that's down. And some of the damage is smaller. It's not always that dramatic. It could be something up on the pole top, but we need to fix it. So I want to go through, and this is something that is confusing, I think, to almost every one of our customers. What kind of outage is it? So, because we're frequently get people calling us and saying, and a lot of these kinds of events saying, you're not notifying us. We had a PSPS event and you didn't notify us. I know you said you notified us 3 days in advance, but I didn't see it. We're pretty good about notifying for PSPS. I mean, in the 95% category. But there are a lot of other kinds of outages. So if it's PSPS, you'll get a notification in advance. It'll tell you the period of concern, and then you'll get a progression of other notifications. Those notifications are mandatory. If we have your contact information on file, we will send it to you. And if you tell us to contact you by telephone, we will call you at 2 in the morning to tell you about the PSPS event. So a couple cautions here. One, probably a better idea to get text messages so that we're not calling you at 2 in the morning. And double check to make sure we do have your contact information. Now, if it's maintenance, we're going to call you 10 days in advance, usually, and then we'll give you some updates. And if it's a repair outage, then there's no notice. Then your power goes out, and then we see on the grid that the power's out, or we get an outage note, an email, someone alerts us to the outage through the website, and then we figure out what the problem is and we do the repair. Now, what gets confusing is when there are really, really high winds, power goes out, and it's impossible almost to figure out, did your power go out because you were ready for a PSPS event, or did your power go out because the wind took the line down? And the way to tell is to go to our SCE.com website, and you can tell what kind of an outage it is. And then the last thing I want to talk about is the bottom row there. PSPS, you know this. I don't have to tell you this, but PSPS are long outages. The average is 23 hours. Maintenance, the average is 5 hours. Repair outages could be 5 hours, could be 2 weeks if it's like the big one and we've got half of the service area out. And I mention this because we need you to be resilient. we need all of our customers to be resilient. We need to be resilient. We know that power outages can occur. And my colleague Rosa is going to talk about our most vulnerable customers to make sure that they have what they need. But absolutely, and I can see your frowns here. I know this is not a great thing to say. We're the electric company. We should be saying we're going to keep you in power 24/7, 365 days a year. Why do you need batteries? So I hear you. I also, we need to make sure that our customers are safe and secure during events. And we know that there are winter storms. We know there's going to be a big earthquake. We know that we need everyone to be resilient. And again, I know it's a tough message. I'm thank you. Yeah, I'm a messenger, and I'm in emergency operations, and from emergency operations, we look at this and we say, let's keep our communities safe. Let's figure out what the problems are we face, and let's face them. So I want to go through, I only have 2 more slides. This one actually also addresses a question we get a lot, which is, why is my power off when it isn't windy? And I think Karen had sort of mentioned this as well. This is not from your county. This is sort of an egregious thing, and I'm actually very happy to tell you this is not in your county, it's in another county. But we have a hill, which is a high fire risk area. At the top, the purple dot there, that's a substation. In the red circle is an undergrounded neighborhood at the bottom of the hill, not in the high fire risk area. All of the lines between that substation at the top and that area in the circle are vulnerable to PSPS. And if we shut them off, then that area in the circle, undergrounded, not in a high fire risk area, will have their power shut off. And the reason is, it's not a good reason, but I'm going to tell you the reason, is when we built our system, we built it for reliability. We weren't thinking PSPS. And as we move, and Ryan is going to talk, as we try to make improvements to the system, we try and correct for these things. But this is sort of where we found ourselves. We have 50,000 miles, I think, of wires, and we're working to correct it, but we have situations like this. And as I said, I'm really happy to report this is not in Mono County or Inyo County for that matter. And this again, and I think Crystal kind of mentioned it a bit, is another question that we get a lot. Why does mine power and I don't? And it's simply where your power is sourced. And again, you'll see that on the left, the wires go up into the mountains, and that's sourced. And on the right, they come from presumably the village. And there's no way in this particular diagram for us to service the community on the left from the wires on the right. In some cases, we can switch customers, and we work on it. We try to switch customers. Our lines are something of a spider web, and in many cases, we can turn sections, move them when we can. But of course, if the neighboring section segments are also at risk for PSPS, then it doesn't really get us anywhere. And in some cases, we, and particularly in very rural areas like this, we don't have anywhere else to turn for you. So that's it on my discussion. And I know I didn't make you guys really happy with what I'm talking about. So I'm going to turn to the technical folks who I think will have some better news for you. Give it back.
I didn't get applause, so you're doing something right. Thank you, Jude. Yeah, so I'm going to take it back here. By the way, it's 5-0 on the top of the 4th for the Dodgers are up. If anybody cares, just put that out there. Save your attention, keep your attention here. So I'm going to walk us through our wildfire mitigation plan. Please bear with me. I know most of the folks in the room here are concerned specifically with your neighborhood, with service reliability concerning your meter. Most of you are probably from the customers of the Bertram Circuit. It's part of the reason we decided to host this meeting here in partnership with the county, with both Mono and Inyo County, I might add. So some of this is high level, and we'll get into a couple case studies throughout the region. Should help to answer some of the questions. What are we doing to harden the grid? and what is the timeline on this work, and also talk a bit about some of the impacts that Jude had mentioned, the difference between maintenance outage, repair outage, and public safety power shutoffs, or PSPS. So by the numbers, what I really want you to be aware of here on this slide, effectively 27% of SCE service area is in a higher fire risk area. Effectively, all of Mono County that we serve is located in a high fire risk area, and all of the Bishop North, including Wilkerson communities in Inyo County, are high fire risk areas. And 27% is also reflective really of every customer bill, what our customers are paying towards these capital improvements, towards this grid hardening in your communities. So that's really what I want you to be aware of here. And then our grid hardening strategies, it's our wildfire mitigation plan is submitted every 3 years to the Office of Electrical Infrastructure Safety and the CPUC. Amended annually. It includes many different aspects. I'll touch on them very, very briefly. And the two I really want to call out are vegetation management and covered conductor as maybe our primary mitigations in this region. But this includes everything from our situational awareness capabilities, what we mentioned, our emergency operations center, our weather stations. It includes our quick reaction force, which was aerial fire suppression, critical to helping nighttime wildfire operations in the LA Basin this January. It includes our targeted undergrounding program. And then, like I said, importantly, vegetation management. We inspect 1.6 million trees annually that might pose a hazard to our power lines. Within our Bishop and Mammoth region, we inspect 44,000 trees annually. This is our hazard tree removal program. This is our structured brushing program where we're brushing around our equipment to, again, draw down the risk of ignition associated with our electrical equipment. I call this out, and we do have our vegetation managers in the room. They offered to be here in case you have questions. And why I called it out is because it's very invasive. It's happening all the time. Trees continue to grow. We are in your backyards doing this work. We are doing it on public lands. It is happening all the time, everywhere. And I understand how frustrating that can be for many customers. And again, we are concerned with the risk associated with our equipment. And to the extent possible, we are partnering. Again, this is not an SCE problem. This is not even a region problem, but a California problem, and it's substantiated by the county budgets, by city budgets, by tribal budgets as we continue to thin and reduce and draw out risk in our forests. So appreciate the partnership there. That's my note on vegetation management, and we can go back to that in Q&A if folks have questions. Our other primary mitigation is covered conductor, which here are the samples. I think Jude might have passed one out. This is insulated wire. So we've installed approximately 195 miles of covered conductor in Mono and Inyo counties beginning really in 2018, ramping up that activity significantly last year, this year, and into 2027. We anticipate a lot of this continued maintenance on our system. It's effectively 53% complete. Why I have approximates here is because we've actually installed a good deal more than these numbers, but we don't categorize it as fully covered until we've completed installation of our guy lines. We might have a guy line on a pole. We might have a bird cover. We might have some aspect of this infrastructure that still needs to be covered to be considered fully covered. And as Jude mentioned, when we look at risk with PSPS, we look at risk associated with our the entire circuit. So if it's not fully covered, we're not there yet. We haven't raised those thresholds, like Jude said. That's the objective. Draw down the risk of blow into our lines and raise those wind speed thresholds, thereby reducing the scope and duration of PSPS. I did want to call out, though, with this work being completed, it does not mean that PSPS goes away entirely. It will help to reduce and draw down the risk, most importantly, risk of wildfire in your backyard, and reduce the frequency and duration of PSPS. But it does not remove that tool from our tool chest. It is a tool that we will reach for out of necessity, a tool of last resort under specific conditions to help keep our community safe. I've also called out on this slide just our progress in 2025, effectively roughly 50 miles installed. We have a target of 80. Fortunately, our construction period is a very narrow window, which happens to coincide with peak visitation and tourism and our economic driver in the region. It's very frustrating for our business customers when we take them down harden our grid and take these maintenance outages, which are necessary to install this equipment and draw down the risk. I understand that frustration. I also understand frustration that we may take a maintenance outage to harden our equipment on a Monday. On Tuesday, we may be under a period of concern for PSPS. I think maybe one of the general sentiments I've heard is that SCE is doing this out of convenience. This is decidedly inconvenient. It goes against the grain of everything we do as a company to serve our customers. We do not want to be in this situation either. It's frankly painful right now. I understand. I appreciate your patience and your grace as we get this work done. It's been a heavy lift, and it's going to continue to be a heavy lift into 27. I'll get into some more specifics. Now, please hold your questions. And I know most of the folks in this room are concerned, again, with their meter and with some of the impacts on the Bircham circuit. But I want to call out a few examples throughout the region because it helps. Well, first of all, we have participants from all over both counties who may also be impacted, and because it helps to paint a picture of what we're doing and our progress. So one of our other frequent flyer circuits is the Stroh-Snyder circuit, which serves the downtown Bridgeport area and the Bridgeport Indian Colony. The little green icons there is covered conductor spans completed, where we've installed this insulated wire that Jude just passed out. And you can see that we have, really for the whole region, we've effectively planned and engineered every inch and mile of overhead conductor that we hope to accomplish over the next couple of years. So you can see the outstanding work orders there. A quick note on this, a short construction window due to weather is only one of the factors. We also deal with extremely strict environmental and regulatory policy, which makes our work very difficult to accomplish. Nobody is more displeased with how long this has been taking than SCE. We are trying to get this work done as quickly as possible, and we realize that it's impactful on each of you. When we take these outages, when we're working in your backyard, when we're shutting down a street for a traffic closure, I get it. Thank you for that. And then, just by the numbers, effectively 13.1 miles of overhead conductor Stroh-Snyder circuit from our substation, which would be the south end of this circuit here, of which we've installed, again, approximately 12 miles of covered conductor. We've got another mile effectively to go to fully cover and insulate from the station that entire circuit. I wanted to call out, just moving North County to south, this was another frequent flyer. This is in Mono Basin. I might add that we had a very recent fire there, the N fire, which threatened structures, which actually claimed a structure. Thankfully, didn't claim any lives. Again, the risk is real, and that work is being expedited as quickly as possible. And so what you see up here, again, are our work orders. And what I wanted to call out on this, why I included it as an example, I'm going to stand up here, is we actually have circuit segments, which Jude had mentioned, which is our ability to switch customers or isolate customers. So if we're experiencing high winds on this line, which is 7 miles, carries 7 miles of risk out to Bodie State Park, effectively to feed one transformer at Bodie State Park. If we're experiencing that fire potential index, those fire threats downstream, and we're not experiencing those here, we have the ability to segment and isolate and keep these customers here on in Mono City, and then again restore and bring back the customers on the remainder of the 2/5 circuit when it's safe to do so. Effectively 29 miles of overhead, 16 miles installed, but importantly, this segment here, which actually feeds our residential meters, our customers in Mono City, is 70% covered. So we've got a little bit of ground to make up. Sir, can you just hold it for me till the end? I think I actually let off with that. We're getting there. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Don't worry. I saved it for last because I knew that's where we were going to spend our time. Okay. And then Mammoth Lakes. I wanted to call this out also. Why? Why did I pick this example? For a couple of reasons. First of all, there's a lot of redundancy of circuits here. There's not one circuit going 7 miles, or in the case of Bircham, 62 miles feeding these communities. It's big, long stretches from the substation to the end user customer. And it transects all this risk, this wind, these environmental conditions. Mammoth's been mostly out of PSPS concerns, I think, since 2018, when we really started refining and installing our weather stations and getting much more surgical and granular with our situational awareness. But also it has the ability, in many cases, to pick up customers to with an adjoining or an adjacent circuit to pick up, say, customers on the, Ryan, you might have to help me, but bobsled, pick them up from the snowdrift. I have my field engineer here too. That's the expert. He's going to help me when I stumble. But so that's what's happening in Mammoth. We have effectively 170 total miles located in high fire risk area. And importantly, 130 of those miles are underground. That's something else that we don't commonly see in our area. Most of our system is overhead. Where we do see underground is in new development through county ordinance. We underground where it is possible. It's not always possible due to environmental factors. And where we can operate, we have great access here. We work in public right-of-ways. We can actually underground equipment. So that's why a lot of this development in Mammoth is undergrounded, and where we are currently in Mammoth. And again, we're 3 miles complete, about halfway through our progress in 2025 in the Mammoth Lakes area. Bertram's up next, I promise. I wanted to jump into South County real quickly. Another example. First of all, this orange area here is our CPUC designated high fire risk area. And importantly with this, if you look at this, the end of this green circuit here, again, this is all of our completed covered conductor. At the end of that is our Bishop Control Substation. That's the point of origin where the power is stepped down transmission and then distributed to the end user customer. And what we've done is we have hardened that entire stretch through covered conductor from the substation to downtown Bishop, and as well as all of this area here feeding Wilkerson. And I call this out for a couple of reasons. First of all, we've reduced the risk of wildfire ignition from the substation through some very dense riparian areas, which are prone to carrying fire into communities. This circuit also serves the hospital, serves downtown Bishop, where we get our groceries, our gas, et cetera. And Kristen, I want to call this out, especially for Supervisor Rozier. Know that it was, again, painful is the word I would choose here. Painful last year. We were taking outages every day to harden the grid down there. It was extremely hot, as you'll recall. Had a lot of customers frustrated with taking outages throughout spring, summer, and fall to complete this work. But we're there. I think we're fully hardened. We down a field. Yeah, thank you. Field verify, but we're seeing that progress made. Yeah, now Bertram. Okay, yeah, I just had a child. Did not name it Bertram. So, okay, so the circuit's actually I believe 62 miles in length. One of the longest circuits in the service area, probably in our entire service area. 52 miles of which are overhead. We've effectively covered, again, approximation, and they were working on it again yesterday. Starlight customers may have seen them out and about. 30 miles of covered conductor. We're better than 53% complete with that work. 3.42 miles of that is underground, and I call that out because I know we have customers in Paradise and Starlight who frequently ask the question. I think you answered, my utility's undergrounded. Why is my power off? There's no risk of ignition with underground facilities. It's because of the risk carried on our overhead conductor from our substations to feed those communities and then step it down on a dip pole underground and serve that community. The other thing I wanted to call out, and I'm going to have help, so I'm not going to leave it here, and don't worry, we'll come back to Q&A, is first of all, you can see we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 segments on the Bertram circuit. The difficulty is that if we're experiencing fire risk and high winds coming out of Bishop Creek, which is very common, or out of Pine Creek, which is, again, very common. It's called out in that first slide I shared from the Wildfire Protection Plan. All customers downstream in Paradise, 40 acres, Round Valley, all that area downstream are subject to PSPS because the risk is upstream of them between the substation and them. There's no way currently to feed those customers except with our distribution circuit. The other thing I wanted to call, actually one more item here. This Bertram 7, again, was just added as a segment, which again provides us some operational flexibility during PSPS to isolate and keep as many customers on as possible. It's fully covered, so we've effectively raised the wind speed thresholds on this section from the substation to Rock and K area, creating an extra segment. So again, I think in this last event, we did not see Rock and K lose power as a direct cause and effect, causality of having fully insulated and covered this conductor. And then Bertram 6, if we have Starlight customers here or watching from home, I'm sorry. I know that it's been painful. We've been taking many outages. There's no way to backfeed those customers when we take those outages. It affects their water system. We've worked really closely with that community to try and communicate as effectively as possible, provide generation where possible. It's not always possible. And I think the success story to share with this is we're hoping to wrap that up with, I think we have one work order left to be accomplished in the next 2 weeks, October, within the next month or so. So we are getting there. And in addition to that, we are trying to field verify. We recognize that not all the risk is created equal on the Bertram circuit. So we are constantly trying to look at, refine, and please, sir, and look at the risk associated with those individual segments. Yes, Jason.
What do the colors mean?
Oh, sorry. Yes. Outstanding work orders where we still have spans of wire to fully cover and insulate completed. And again, this is not totally accurate. We still have some data that's coming in from the field. Yes, correct. Oh, okay, great. Yeah, so yes, to fully harden that conductor. This has been, it's like Sherman's slow march to the sea, and I'm sure it feels like scorched earth tactics because it's just been every day we have outages between PSPS and between planned maintenance outages. So again, I think this is, I think, an example of what many customers on the Bertram circuit are experiencing. And in terms of the remaining circuit segments, again, we transect many different land management agencies. We have limited operating periods due to sensitive species. It is extremely difficult to get this work done, but we hope to have it done by, I think it was June of next year, end of 26. Okay, yeah, great. Yeah, sorry, and thanks. We believe it or not, everybody from the highest level of our company down is acutely aware of this issue. The circuit, Supervisor Dugan, what you said once, it's nice to be number one, but not in this, right? So this is a frequent flyer circuit. It frequently falls into scope for some of the reasons that I just mentioned. But why I mentioned this is sometimes we're so ingrained and engrossed in what we're doing, what we're talking about to help the situation, make it better, that we forget that this is not obvious to. Thank you, sir. Gotcha. Thanks. Starlight. Rocking K. I don't know what's here. Good question. There you go. Thank you. Cal Fire. I think I just got it. Cal Fire. And nobody at home or can see my finger either. So that's
We're
another thing.
we're moving the
Oh,
little
okay.
hand on
Thank you.
so people. Yeah.
Bertram 4 feeds Pine Creek. Bertram 2 feeds the Mesa. This is the community on the Mesa, Mustang Mesa. Ravenna, 40 acres. And Bertram 3 feeds up to the community of Paradise.
And Matt, what are all the little dots? Someone was asking all the circles.
Completed work orders in green, outstanding planned, designed, engineered projects waiting to be released to contractors pending environmental ERD documents and weather.
Do you want to repeat what the colors are? There's like a question about the pink color and then just.
Yeah, all I'd really like you to focus on or what's important is that the brown items are the outstanding work orders. The green is completed. The green is fully covered. The pink still has areas which need to be covered. That's what those are. That's what we're hoping to do. I've learned in my job never to provide their estimates. Their estimates. Excuse me. Sorry, sir. 1 second here. Okay. So, okay. Sorry. Before we get there, we're still holding questions, please. I did want to call out other mitigations. Like I said, we understand that Bertram is especially challenging. We had questions about microgrids. We had questions about when the work is going to be completed. We've had questions about customer side solutions like battery storage. We've had questions about customer microgrids, community microgrids. I'm hoping to answer some of the microgrid questions as we move along, but effectively, I mean, we are looking at this from every angle and every solution. But what I ask is patience and grace as we get this work done. This is how we harden the system. This is how we provide reliable power and reduce fire risk. Okay. Here. I can answer that, but our field engineer can do it better.
And can you repeat the question?
The question was, what do these segments represent and what do they allow us to do? So each one of these segments is switch to switch. So we call these an isolatable segment. So they are from an automated switch to an automated switch that allow us to segment our circuit into areas where we quantify the risk for each individual segment and then operate them independently, right? So these segments, we've placed them strategically with our weather stations, paired with our weather stations, so that the weather station closest to this segment is used to forecast what's happening on your segment specifically. So when we do PSPS, it's not by the whole circuit, right? It's by each individual segment. So the segments represent switch to switch. So what he was talking about with the addition of this segment 7 here in our most recent outages is that Rocking K here was being impacted unnecessarily because the weather station for this area was not indicating that we needed a PSPS outage, but the weather station up here was indicating that we needed an outage. So by adding another segment, now that same situation, Rocking K, is no longer affected. So that is the purpose of the segments.
Yes, 14. It does, and specific fire risk associated with it. Absolutely. And there's 14 weather stations on the Bertram circuit. Yeah. In addition to the live field observers. Hopefully my colleague Ted, he's online, can hear us. And Jason, were you able to promote him as panelist?
Hey folks, I'm here. Can you guys hear me in the room?
Thanks, Ted. I'm going to pass it to you. And then I'm just going to read the room here. We have Rosa Perea also. Our last section of this presentation is devoted to customer programs and resources. And I don't want to leave that out. But again, reading the room, it sounds like this is what people are most interested in discussing. So Ted, I'm going to let you drive. And okay, I'm going to let you drive. And then Rosa, you're available for questions, comments. And we have our folks, our partners from DDAR here with the Loaner Innovent battery program as well. So Ted,
Matt,
could you please speak up and please run for me and clean up some of my mess and what I stumbled over? Thank you.
Matt, can you hear me in the room there? I'm hoping you guys can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's pretty quiet, Ted. And I should add for folks, Ted works in our PSPS evolution and is very close to this work. He also has COVID, so he was planning on joining us, but he's coming in remotely today. So
all I can do is try to yell like this. Is it helpful if I do? You guys still can't hear me, it sounds like?
We can hear you a little bit better.
that'll better.
It is, oh man. I mean, I'm doing all I can. I've got my microphone in my mouth here, and I do apologize for not being able to make it up there. I was really looking forward to it. But unfortunately, yeah, came down with the COVID here. So whoever's presenting, would you mind unpresenting so that I can share my screen? Okay, give me 1 second here and see if this will work. Okay, here we go. So I wanted to show a couple things here for folks. I have many different ways to look at this circuit. I wanted to show here the weather stations that were just mentioned, 14 weather stations. These yellow dots are all of our weather stations in the area. The blue line is the Bertram circuit. If that helps to show, it doesn't have the same segmentation in this view as you saw on what was being presented there. I also have on this view the fuel sample locations. I heard that question from the audience earlier. There's a fuel sampling station just south of Bishop here. It's one that we operate. There's another one just north, near where you guys are today, near the Mammoth Airport. That's run by us as well. And then there's one nearby in Crestview that's actually run by the National Forest, and some more north of Bishop and Mammoth, further up. And that's all publicly available information on FEMS, is the Fire Environment Mapping System. Anybody can go there and view that information. Same thing with our weather stations. That's also all publicly accessible, downloadable data information. I can go to a view similar to what Matt had, showing some of the work that is planned on the Bertram circuit. If we take a look at what's still remaining planned for 2025 here, you'll see that is tackling the tail ends of those segments that were out to the southwest of the area there. I failing to remember the segment names really quickly. We jump over here is Bertram 4 and 6. So I think Matt has the geographic knowledge better than me, but I think it was the Paradise area, and also I know there's a tin mine down here, tungsten mine, that is served by segment 4. So yeah, like you said, marching towards the end of the line there, and that will be a tremendous help for the customers in those areas that I think are the most affected of all. Matt didn't mention, but he was instrumental in helping, and the field engineer as well, in helping figure out a way to pick up some customers on some of these segments toward the north of the circuit through the adjacent circuit to the north. We don't always have that option, and and I'll double down on the comments about how this circuit is very much the most difficult one that we have in our entire service territory. From a PSPS perspective, it's very long. It has very little circuit tie capability, and it's very windy. And it's usually when it's windy on the majority of it. I'll also double down on some of the fire risk. We have seen fires start from this circuit, unfortunately, in the past, and that has devastated the area historically. So all those things are true. The fire risk is real. I think I'm gonna stand by for questions, but just know that I have some tools here. I can pull up information for you folks. I'm hoping you can see and hear what I'm saying.
Yeah,
So
we can hear you pretty well.
Okay,
so.
good.
Quick question, maybe Supervisor Dugan, if you're there, you are, man in the snack bar. So again, reading the room, I think I know that folks have questions. I think this is probably a good place to leave it for the time being, but we're happy to answer questions. And yeah, how would you like to work it? I think online we've requested they be submitted through chat. Yep. Thank you.
That's great. And thank you. What we just heard from Ted was kind of the meat that we're in line, because obviously comparing the other circuits, I noticed from the back of the room that there's a lot of little green boxes, and there's no little green boxes on Bertram yet. And they are coming, and there's a lot of brown with areas that has not been treated. And so the concern is that you haven't forgotten anyone, and it's coming your way. This is the toughest. You have it. I was informed by SCE officials that this area is from one of the 3 in the state like this, and some of them have been in bigger urban areas. And we're really happy to give up our #1 spot anytime. And I think now is a good time just to remind everyone, all of the public comments that you did during the last Board of Supervisors meeting in Mono that you came forward, they got them. They're addressing them. And one of the questions that I have to get started here is, so we're hearing that we're in line to harden it. And what it appears to me is that this circuit does not have a lot of breaks in it. and hoping that in the plans there are more breaks, because that's what has come across. And questions that I got were, what is the reality of undergrounding? And I think you've underground every place that's easy and makes sense in affordability. And now we're talking about weighing overhead lines, the cost of those versus the other, and even the viability, because a lot of them, that Bertram circuit is granite and it's not feasible. So we're understanding that those of you that have not had significant hardening in your neighborhoods or something, I can tell you here in Crowley, it's taken 2.5 years, and it was pretty, we experienced a lot what you did, but I don't know the exact percentage of the reduction of PSPS. I'm feeling it is at least 60%, and it could be 80. So there's hope at the end of this that this becomes manageable. So I think that there's a few people that do want to speak on some things that you've not spoken. Appreciate the information. This group is well how it works. They just want to see how it's going to work for them, and realizing that there's a lot of challenges ahead here, and to know that we are addressing it is really, and is what's critical here, and understanding, because the biggest challenge that I hear as a supervisor is we've hardened what we can. We have everything from generators, battery packs, leaving town, but we're held hostage in our homes because we don't know how long this goes on. And I appreciate that you've cut down the repeated notices. I get every one of those. Okay. I see the PSPS notices for here. I do not see a maintenance notice if it doesn't affect me. That information is protected for you. So I don't know. The only way I know that you had a power outage is if you call me and tell me, and then we go and see what's going on. But noticing that those things that in over a 2-day period, I had 48 notices that the Bertram circuit was down. I couldn't tell if your power was on or off, other than calling you. So I feel every bit of that pain because I feel helpless. But what I really want to do is give people an opportunity to tell something about their experience that you may not know. And it might help you come up with some solutions. And that's really is getting down to it. And I appreciate everybody wanting to be heard. You will be here. Dodgers are up 6-0. We don't have to worry about that. So, well, let's get all the questions out here. And it's really, really, really important to say it in the mic. We'll bring it around, and to make sure, because people online want to go, what was that question? And since we're recording it, that's really important. I really appreciate you being patient and gracious. Please eat the cookies. I don't want to take those home. Where do you want to start? Who wants to go first?
Do you want to take the mic around, or do you want me to do it?
You do that side, I'll do it.
Okay, we just only have 2 mics.
These are down. All of these are down.
I don't know if these are working.
Again, there we go. Okay.
It's because
Okay. Oh, and you got to speak right into it. It's not like a stage mic. You
Okay.
just sing.
Is this okay? Great. My first question is, it's not clear to me that each community is going to have an isolated segment that can be left on. Is that going to happen?
This working?
Yes.
Oh.
Great. Okay. So as it stands right now, not have an isolated segment for each individual community, but Ted, can you pull up the map of isolated segments?
So it's a little bit hard to hear you on the podium there. Is this the map you wanted? I'm sorry.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's a lot
thank you,
better.
Ted.
That's a lot better.
So we have split this up about to what we think is the best we can split it up. There's potential maybe for one more segment in there, but as of right now, we don't gain any benefit from that. We only gain benefit right now from a segment when the entire thing is covered, or the greatest benefit from when it's covered. So if you look at segment 1 there, Bircham 1, that entire segment is covered, meaning that the weather station for that can be, our thresholds can be raised to the covered conductor thresholds, which are significantly higher than the bare conductor thresholds. The same thing will happen for Starlight on, what is that, Bircham 6. In about a month, once that's completed, their thresholds be raised. So now the amount of winds and all the other stuff that goes into that causes a PSPS outage should be a lot less frequent once we have that covered conductor installed. But to answer your question, it doesn't necessarily help to add a segment for each community because sometimes the segment that is directly in your community is not the part we're concerned about. We're more concerned about the stuff that's between your community and the substation. And unfortunately, if it gets windy in between the substation and your community, we sometimes have to de-energize that line, and that line is part of the path for your power. So even if your segment at your community is not technically de-energized or has not reached those thresholds, the upstream segment that feeds it the power has been.
No, yeah, no, I understand that. That wasn't actually my question. My
Okay.
question was, is there a way, like when, well, let's say we live in Ravenna.
Mhm.
Let's say, again, no wind in Ravenna. Is there a way to set this up so that each community doesn't lose power throughout? I understand that you're saying it's all connected, but is that something in the future that can happen? Because I mean, that seems like the most obvious thing, like
The-
put some more lines in a way that means
Yeah.
that these things don't get,
So
everything doesn't get shut down at once.
yeah, the issue we face is the lines have to go through that same area. Even if we take a different route, the wind is still pretty similar along that route, right? So it wouldn't necessarily help. There are some other alternatives we've looked at. I know Matt wanted to touch on the microgrids. It's not something that we are confident is going to work out, but it's something we're in the early stages of evaluating. And what a microgrid is basically it would allow your community to remain energized even when the upstream conductor has been de-energized, like battery backups, generators,
Yeah,
solar,
that's
that
kind
type
of
of
what
thing.
I'm speaking about.
Yeah, so we are looking into that. It's a technology that's in its infancy. There's still a lot of technical issues with it, but it is something that we're actively pursuing, and we're looking for opportunities to pilot that.
Okay. And I have one other
Oh.
question, which has to do with the PSPS response time. There's definitely seems to be a big lag between when ostensibly the winds have died and they've died everywhere. And then we get, however many hours later, calls saying, well, the winds have died. It's like, yeah, definitely the winds have died sometime before this. And then it takes, on the average 6 hours to get the power back because the lines are being inspected. It seems to me like maybe more inspectors would be a good idea so that that happens quicker because it seems like, that period of time, there's, you know where the lines are, and I understand they aren't always easy to access. But if you had more people out at that moment inspecting the lines, maybe it would happen quicker, that we'd know things aren't down.
I could. Sorry, can you guys hear me in the room again? Sounds like maybe. Yes, somebody said yes. Uh, so there is some. I mean, we are talking about other ways to feed the circuit, like the Ravenna area. Right? Microgrid is one option. There may be also a way to serve it from the Rock Creek circuit to the north in the event that the winds are significantly lighter up here. It's a sort of a new switching plan that's been developed for the area. Again, it will depend on the weather that actually manifests during an event. And so that's one option. It is limited in this area to be able to tie into adjacent circuits, as mentioned there in the room. Sorry, that's all I was going to add.
So sorry, I'll take a crack and then pass it to Jude. There's a couple of things there. First with the microgrids, want to call that out. First of all, A microgrid is not a cure for PSPS unless the entire system is undergrounded and isolated, because again, the risk is carried with our overhead conductor. They're also extremely expensive and they take a large deal of real estate to store those batteries. We've also looked at potential customer side solutions, so like deeper discounts for highly impacted customers, up to no potential no cost solutions for our medical baseline income eligible customers. These are all things that we're looking at and developing. Sorry, I wish I had more to share with you tonight. I don't. All these things take time. With restoration, I think 12 hours sometimes is optimistic here. And I'm not just talking PSPS. Frankly, we have customers in other areas of the county that have seen more and lengthier outages than those of you on the Bertram circuit. When we have a storm come into the region, it slams into our infrastructure and often leaves those communities without power for multiple days due to access issues. With PSPS, we bolster staffing plans. We do staff around these events because, again, they're forecasted. We use real-time weather for decision-making, but we forecast in order for our incident management team to adequately staff and devote resources to support. When the weather abates, and again, it may have abated at your house, it may not have abated on the line. Our meteorology folks are monitoring that the entire time that power is out. They're trying to give the green light as soon as they can, but they do see fluctuations, they see spikes, and we don't want to deploy resources to not be able to bring you folks back up.
Hey,
Okay,
Matt.
go ahead. You're going to. Yeah.
Is it okay if I comment really quick on the
Thank you.
post patrols?
I-
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, I just want to say that you're talking about storm events and everything. Another thing that's happening is that we live in an area with katabatic winds. There's seasons when the wind just picks up in the afternoon. It's not a storm, it's just regular weather here. And yet we're getting PSPS notices back to back to back for days on end when we know that the wind is going to blow. And you can't, it makes it unlivable. I mean, we have this sword of Damocles hanging over our head constantly, just because we live in this area and there are regular winds. And it seems like you guys aren't necessarily taking that into account or planning for it. I understand if there's a storm or there's something unexpected coming up, but these are expected winds and they happen every evening for weeks on end.
Yeah. So
Diurnal winds. Yeah. Katabatic winds, definitely diurnal winds. Yes.
Yeah,
we live
common.
with them.
So certainly the word I've heard frequently that summarizes it is unsustainable. We acknowledge that the wind frequently comes down canyon, Bishop Creek, Pine Canyon, all parts in between. It acts erratically. Sometimes it jumps up a canyon or down a canyon. We understand that may just be common. What we're looking at is trying to break the fire triangle. So we're looking at fuels, humidity dew point. We're looking at ignition and heat, and we're trying to break that cycle. That's what we're doing. Understanding that it's frustrating, and you've just seen the millions of dollars of capital that are going into fixing this problem as quickly as we can. And you're saying it's windy every day where you live. Yes, yes, I understand. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. But maybe the best way to put this is I'd pass to Jude.
Ouch. The winds are not, normally erratic, and we understand that. What we're concerned about is when you have the winds and it's exceptionally dry. And what we're looking at is a formula for when there could be a significant fire risk. Not fire risk, because there is fire risk all the time, but a significant fire risk. And that isn't all the time. That is when it is exceptionally dry and a spark could travel, an ember could travel. Yeah. So I mean, I hear you, and I know that the supervisor would like you to talked into the mic, and I mean, I can repeat your frustration these are regular winds, and why should it now be different than it was? And so the two things I will say are fire risk is higher, and we're not willing to not treat you safely. And we see a fire risk, even if it is the same winds that you've had for 20 years or 30 years. No? Okay, tell me again.
Basically, I'm saying that that SCE has to take into account the fact that these are local regular winds, not that they have changed. I mean, yes, maybe the fire risk has gone up somewhat, but this is something that you need, I think, by law to provide us with power, regular power in our region for our regular weather. Unusual weather, absolutely. Unusual winds, absolutely. But, if we have regular diurnal winds and we're for weeks on end being told that our power might be shut off at any minute, then that's not acceptable.
So, I mean, I think, let me say, we understand the winds are regular winds, but the fire conditions, the dryness, the years of drought, the decades of drought have put us in a higher fire risk than we were before. And we're not doing nothing. Everything we've talked about here is trying to harden your grid and come up with solutions. But the solution that we are not looking at, and I'll be quite blunt, the solution we're not looking at is saying, it's fine, it's always like this, let's keep the power on. So we are looking at ways in which we can harden your grid, come up with longer solutions, and understand. The other thing we're doing is we're looking at where the weather station, whether we are accurately seeing that risk, whether in some cases we're looking and seeing, well, maybe there is less fire risk in certain areas, and we're going through systematically to see where those are. So we understand. I mean, I will say, and everyone up here has said the same thing, Bircham is our worst circuit. And there are probably 200 of us that hear, oh, Bircham. And so we understand. And I mean, obviously we can't share your frustration because we don't live there and it's not us, but we do understand to some degree. I'd say maybe we're not empathetic because we don't live here, but we're certainly, it's top of our mind is how we fix this systemic problem, which, as you said, it's always been windy. It's a gorgeous place. And it's now a higher fire risk than it ever was. And I don't know that that's going to satisfy you, but I want to give you a sense of our thinking, our philosophy.
You hear me now? Good. So after working for the Forest Service for 30 years, I understand fire and I understand models, and I think you're doing the best you can after listening to you tonight. So the things I want to know about is technology. What technologies might be available in the future that you put on poles that can give indications of problems with the lines between poles, if that's where it's happening? So it's not telemetry necessarily. I don't know. I mean, if we can put a rover on Mars and send back data telling us what the chemicals are and whether life is on Mars, I think maybe we can figure out what's going on at a pole between poles. Yeah. And so what are you looking at technologies pole to pole to try to solve this problem, rather than the ironic nature of a company called Faith Electrics to tell us when the power's coming back on? Secondly, the only comment I have is when you put those paper things on the door saying there's going to be maintenance, that's not 21st century technology. Texting is 21st century technology, and it's a duplicitous methodology that just ends up in the landfill. So I've lived in Ravenna for 27 years, and she's exactly right about the winds up there. My buddy called it Blovanna, and I adopted the name because we get those down canyon Venturi winds that just blow like crazy in the evenings, and then they settle down, and it's a calm night. And that happens in the spring, particularly in May and June and April. So anyway, the technology thing I wanted to get to.
Yeah. So you're right. There are more advanced technologies that we can be using, and we are in the early stages of rolling those out. What it sounds like you're referring to is something we call early fault detection, which is something we hang up on a pole, and it injects electromagnetic current into the wires, and it reads the frequencies that come back, and we're able to use that to pinpoint miles and miles away problems before they even actually would normally appear. Normally, we don't know a problem happens until either we see it visually or it blows up. It literally blows up. In this case, we would be able to see that electronic signature of, for example, water tracking down an insulator, a cracked insulator, something in between the lines that's arcing occasionally, but not enough to lock out the circuit. So that is something that we're rolling out, and that is something that should help us to be more proactive in fixing issues before they cause an outage. And the second part of your question, I think Matt can speak to.
Agreed fully on the door hangers, sir. Couldn't agree more. I think that I'm old school. I'm a Luddite. I understand that's why we're here, to talk to each of you in person. I appreciate that, but I do want to encourage customers, please update your outage notification information. It is imperative that you sign up for SMS, that you sign up for email. That said, we've been asked by many of your neighbors and our customers to please provide a door hanger in addition. So we are doing that. I couldn't agree more. The other piece of tech I wanted to call out was drone in a box. We are getting better with our use of LiDAR, remote sensing technology for vegetation management, to kind of verify and really be surgical, looking at the risk in different communities, and to verify that in the field, and also to use of drones to speed up that restoration time, which again, I acknowledge it's frustrating to some customers. It's invasive to some customers. We're looking at all of that. The other note for restoration is that we live in a very remote area, which we love, but that's not without challenges. And part of that is access. We have dirt roads. We require daylight for several of these circuits and circuit segments, and we require air operations for several of them. And just very simple. I think Jude covered it already, but our restoration policy, we need to visually inspect every inch and mile of that line, because it does us no good to de-energize that circuit and to then the wind has gone away, energize it, and to have blow into our line, sagebrush, vegetation, or a tree toppled on a line, we would be starting a fire then. So it's very frustrating. Ma'am, I sympathize with you. I know exactly where you're at. And I would call it empathy, because we have many SCE employees here that live on the Bertram circuit, that live in Paradise, that live also in June, that live in Mammoth, that live on the Mesa. They're impacted by this. I have a well pump that I require for water for my house. I understand the need to keep your groceries cold. I understand the need to heat and cool your home. It's frustrating, and we're trying to work through it as expeditiously as we can. And one, I don't know if it's a correction, Supervisor Dugan, but maybe just a nuance. It's not that Bertram is next in line. It has been in line. It has been a priority for our company for the last several years. We acknowledge this. Everybody knows the word Bertram, right? That works in this space in SCE, and we're working to solve it. It takes time. I know it's frustrating. We're working every single day to get there. Laura, it looks like you have a question. Don't be shy, Laura.
Thank you. You partially answered one of my questions. If Bertram is the worst of the worst, why is it the last of the last?
It's actually not.
According to your map, it pretty much looks like it is.
No, I called out a couple success stories there where we've been able to get some conductor in the ground. Again, this has, I would say, primarily it's with topography, geography. That circuit climbs 2,000 mile, transects some of the most challenging terrain in the not even our entire service area, in the entire country, to serve these communities. Again, that's why we live here. It's also a very challenging regulatory framework in which we work. We cannot just go out and replace poles. We need to submit documentation with the agencies. It needs to be approved. We have limited operating periods in which to work. Bertram actually benefits from being at a low enough elevation that we kind of can work almost year round, depending on what the weather's doing. Other areas, not so much. So it's the length of the circuit. It's all of these challenges that we need to operate under the laws which regulate our business.
Thank you. As a Mustang Mesa resident, one of the things that concerns that we have that a lot of people don't have is Paradise is a community water system, I believe, correct? Rovana is a community water system, correct? Okay. Mustang Mesa is not. We're all on wells. The other thing that Mustang Mesa has that most everybody doesn't have is engineered septic systems. As of 1992, every new house on Mustang Mesa has to have an engineered septic system, which means your septic tank has a well pump in it, which requires electricity. 23 hours without electricity, and you have a house of 5 or 6 people using the water system that runs into a tank that can't be pumped.
Say no
What are
more.
you going to do?
Say no more. That's a beautiful example.
You know, there's an old expression about fertilizer running downhill. Well, from Mustang Mesa, pretty much everything's downhill.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think Jude had mentioned the Mesa has always been subject to PSPS because there's no way to feed that community with any other way than with the Bertram circuit, which feeds it. It has been added as a high fire risk area. And
It's not. It is not a fire higher.
No, sorry. I think you're looking at a CAL FIRE map or hey, Ted, could you pull up SCE.com and just bring up the HFRAs for me, please? Right, which you, yeah.
Okay, let's talk about Mustang Mesa high fire hazard area. Okay, I've lived there for 32 years. I'm a retired fire captain from CAL FIRE. There has not been a fire on Mustang Mesa in over 30 years. The fuel continuity on Mustang Mesa is so thin that unless you've got a 40-mile-an-hour wind, you're not going to get fire spread. Yeah. It's not going to happen. Okay. So the lumping Mustang Mesa into an arbitrary high fire hazard area, look at your fire history. Look at your fuel load. We were talking about fuel loading. Okay. Fuel loading has a broad spectrum of what is heavy fuel, what's light fuel, what's medium fuel. Then you have to talk about recovery times. You have 1 hour fuels, 10-hour fuels, 100-hour fuels, 1,000-hour fuels. That's how it's measured on how moisture absorbed into the fuel. Okay. Mustang Mesa is mostly 1 hour and 10-hour fuels. Occasionally you'll get something large enough that's 100-hour fuel, and we definitely don't have any 1,000-hour fuels. So my other question is, you have what, 2 areas that you carry, that you sample for live fuel moisture? Okay.
Those are the
And where,
sites,
okay,
but we
one's
also digest
Wilkerson or
gas
something, one's Wilkerson, one's Mammoth
Other-
Airport.
agency.
Sorry, Ted pulled it up there. I think it's 4 or 5 in the general area. And it's also on that map there too. And then we also, those are the fuel sample sites that our contractors or our Edison employees do fuel sampling. We also have data and information on fuel sampling from a number of other different agencies that also do their fuel sampling. So we're all sharing information. The ones on that map are the ones that Edison specifically sends people out to.
Okay.
Real quick, sir, if I can hop in, because you're
Yeah.
good questions, but I want to try and tackle the little pieces I can before there's more piled on, if I can. So yes, understand Mesa, the area is defined largely by volcanic rock. Your risk is not the same as the risk associated with other parts of the Bertram circuit. You are fed by the Bertram circuit though. That is the issue. There's no way for us to get power from our substation to serve your community without transecting these areas where we're seeing these winds. So I sympathize really with the Mesa. I mean, you look out your window, you're going, where's the wind? I have many colleagues that live on the Mesa. I understand. Yeah, and you are in a high fire risk area. as defined by the California Public Utilities Commission and the high fire threat districts, and
Well, I'm glad the
Edison
Public
International
Utilities
just
Commission is
Edison
into fire
International
suppression.
Edison International just funded 2 wildfire reduction projects on the Mesa that the community applied for risk reduction due to wildfire risk in the Mesa. So yes, there is wildfire risk in the Mesa. I would agree that it is not as severe as other places, and we're constantly trying to refine that. But there's no way currently to serve your customer load up there to get you the power, because it transects these other areas where we have high winds. And this is not a subjective process. It is an objective process. And what I would add is, as uncomfortable as this is, I would prefer that you be alive and upset with your property and our public lands intact. That's why we're basing these decisions based on the best science and data available. I understand it's difficult, but that's what we're doing. And we have a moral and a very legal responsibility to do that. That's what we're doing. And I hear your frustration.
Trina, and then there, and then I'm going to hand it off to you.
Thank you. My question is with the PSPS. You said that this is forecasted and you know when they're going to happen. And yet my constituents are getting told daily. Why can't you give them a broader time frame so that they can plan? Because right now they can't even go out of town without being concerned that their electricity is going to be shut off. They're going to lose food. They're going to lose pumps for their water, for their septic, and whatever other systems they have running. So if you're forecasting this and you know it's going to be repeated 5, 6, 7, 8 days in a row, why aren't you forewarning them in a broader time frame?
That's a really good question. Thank you for that. So it's our weather forecasts get much more granular the closer we get, right? And so whether it's your weather app, whether it's our meteorologist, you can look 2 weeks ahead, and we probably already we all have a decent sense, right, of okay, we can kind of generally expect the weather to look like this 2 weeks out. But we can't predict down to a circuit level or a segment level 2 weeks from now between noon and 8 p.m. This is where we're going to be. So in crafting PSPS and in looking at our notifications and what kind of, with feedback from community members, with feedback from the regulators, with feedback from electeds and stuff, and then combining that with how accurately we can predict, if we started going too far ahead, it in some parts of the year, in some areas, just be this constant blanket statement. But then when you get down to 24 hours out, 48 hours out, when you get down to 6 hours out, and then actually making decisions to de-energize, that gets more and more granular and more specific. So in the feedback that we've gotten in the past, we've actually heard from a lot of people that they don't want a blanket, hey, you're in the possibility for the next 2 weeks, that becomes over notification, it becomes taxing. They don't want to hear something that broad and generic. They want to know when it's something we can really stand behind. And when we get to that 72 and 48 hour mark, that's usually when we can stand behind a higher level of likelihood that we're comfortable saying like, hey, this is likely enough that we're going to be sending out patrols, we're going to be doing inspections and so on and so forth. That is, I will say, another one that we are always open to feedback on. If we're hearing that areas actually want more notification, we can definitely take a look at that. Would love to hear more on that. But the feedback we've gotten before is that they don't want a broad multi-week or 5+ days out because it varies so much across those days. And then we're painting with we're painting with an even broader brush at that point when you're talking 5+ days out.
We actually do have a county by county 7-day out website that will tell you. I tend not to recommend it to people because it's by county, and Mono, Inyo are large counties that cover so many different areas, and we don't, it doesn't tell you what part of the county. So I don't find it a particularly useful tool, but it is if it's helpful. Mono might actually be a little more helpful because you're all kind of in one geographic area. And it's in our slides, and we can make sure that you have that address. And then the other thing I would point out is that the notification cadence is set by the California Public Utilities Commission, and that's what we follow.
Good evening. I'm Mike. We know a lot of people out here. What I'd like to say, and maybe the state's listening, I'm going to make it quick. And also, if Ted could bring up the Bircham Circuit map. So when you shut off the power, you shut off my Wi-Fi. My Wi-Fi runs my cell. My cell phone gets my fire department notice. Our whole fire department gets shut off because we don't have cell service. We rely on Wi-Fi. We're the guys who come to all of your communities. If you haven't realized, Paradise is right next to the Mesa, 40 acres, Rovana. We'll show up. Anyways, that's the fire department thing, and realizing that we don't have broadband, cell service, or Wi-Fi when it's out. Okay. Right there, isn't that the Gorge Power Plant? And you guys are saying that you can't get power into the Bircham Circuit from anywhere else? I mean, we are blessed with power in the Eastern Sierra. That's a pretty big source of power right in the middle of the Bircham Circuit. I don't know. I'm just a carpenter, but seems like that would be the spot.
Thanks. I'll start with the resiliency piece. I think there's a couple ways to tackle that. We've just shared with you what we're doing to harden the grid, draw down risk, improve reliability, and we're getting there. The other piece is that the CPUC also regulates telecom providers, and there's resiliency requirements also with telecom providers. Several of the fire departments and county facilities throughout the region have, and this was part of Rose's piece that we kind of broke off early, but taking advantage of the self-generation incentive program, or SGIP. When we had that winter storm outage, the avalanche in Mono City, 22, 23, their firehouse was the only facility with power for 7 days with sub-zero temperatures. It was a gathering, it was a community site, and we encourage investment in resiliency. We're trying to do everything we can to fix the problem. And I know that we're asking more of our customers here than we may in other areas, but every one of our customers and our businesses need to be resilient. So I'll just leave that there, but I think there's a couple ways to tackle that piece about fire pagers and telecom. Ryan?
Okay, I can speak a little bit to the Three Gorges part. So that power plant is owned and operated by LADWP, not SCE. So we are not able to source power from there. The second part of that is that that power is generated and transmitted to high voltage, meaning we would need to build a substation, which means lands, which means environmental reviews, which means licensing with the CPUC. That's about a 10-year process to build a new substation with the regulatory environment that we're in today. Not to mention, each new substation that we build nowadays is $100 million plus. So building a substation for reliability concerns is very, very difficult to do, both practically and economically. So that is why we're not able to source power from Three Gorges there. Although ideally in a world where, we were able to, it would be nice. As you know, I'm the electrical engineer for the area, and electrically I would love that, but unfortunately in the world we live in, it is not possible.
Hi. I want to say thank you for being here and for tackling all of these issues, because I live in Crowley, so not Bircham. I think I'm on McGee, but we also have PSPS. We also have had significant investment in infrastructure in Crowley, which has meant that we've had many days of power outages, like out all day Friday, out all day Monday. And it happens like that. And I am very grateful, because I know that investment and those inconveniences are making a difference in our long-term resilience. I'm wondering if I have two questions, and one is related to how you, I think it was mentioned, but how you, I mean, I know Edison staff, Edison contractors are doing the fuels measurements, and I understand that the Inyo National Forest and the BLM, there's a whole interagency fire conditions system. And I'm wondering if you could speak a bit to how you integrate with that system and consider other fire incidents that are happening throughout the state to try to make some decisions around PSPS. And my other comment, I guess, is that it's obvious you're making significant investments in this, both in replacing line and replacing poles. Poles in Crowley are all being replaced. And also at a community level of investing back into the community. So I'm wondering if you want to speak at all to that, because I know this is going to take a long time. I think you've illustrated that. And I'm curious, well, here's a better question. Do you have any estimates of how much you're able to save by making these investments versus the recovery, both in terms of dollar recovery and time recovery, if we were to have a significant fire because of line failure in windy conditions?
For sure. So I'm going to try to.
Sorry about all the questions.
Oh, no, it's totally good. So the second one, I don't have that. We have stats on that. I don't have those numbers right in front of me, and I don't want to try to quote those off the top of my head. But we have done a number of reviews of how much faster we can recover, how our hardened systems do function. Particularly, we've seen actually massive success in other places when we've hardened the grid and done covered conductor and done composite pole replacements. Massive success during windstorms and snowstorms. They perform way better, not even just in wildfire and wind, but in those other storms too. Great success there. So it really does make the whole system much more reliable, not just with the PSPS buy down. I don't have hard numbers in front of me, so I do apologize on that. For your first question on interagency fire work that we do. So yes, everybody you named, we work with all of the county fire agencies, CAL FIRE, U.S. Forest Service, BLM. We work with all of the groups to not only prepare, not only to inform our mitigations, inform our thresholds. I think I saw a question in the chat when the chat was up there too about if our thresholds are necessarily approved by fire agencies. And I wouldn't use that word approved, but we do work in conjunction with them. Their data, history, analysis is helping to inform ours. It absolutely is a partnership. We're not doing that in a vacuum at all. And then when fires do occur or when we are in storm situations, that's no small part of what our incident management teams are doing. We have people that we send out to incident command posts, that we send out to other EOC, emergency operation centers and stuff like that. So when we are in an incident, we are also in regular, near constant communication with first responder agencies as well.
Good evening. My name's John. I'm from Ravenna. And my first I have multiple questions. I'll try to go quick in comments. The first one, I assume when our power gets shut off, it's a rhetorical question. We don't get billed when the power is off. Okay, that's obvious, it seems. At least one time, and probably most, I wish I'd written the date down. When you shut the power down, my phone, I have a car charger. So to paraphrase Johnny Cash, I drove the line and drove around. And first place I went was Mustang Mesa. And I thought, these are really beautiful homes. I could live here. But if you don't have electricity to flush the toilets, maybe I won't move there. But that was the first thing. And then I headed down. I didn't know about, I know Starlight, I've been there, but maybe I didn't hit it, but I didn't see a breath of wind. And then that sort of brought up my next frustration was you have all these recorded things that go out great on text, but I'm going to get to the point like the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll memorize them all. None of them are ever personalized. And I guess that's just too cumbersome. But on that particular event, I thought, okay, you made the best guess. You shut the power off. I didn't detect a breath of wind. Maybe some wind station way up the mountains had something. But if there was a bit more personal exchange by someone in charge that sort of on particular events had a little more than just the standard reply, that would probably go a bit of a ways to improving morale. But I'm totally sympathetic with you guys. You don't want the fires. There's the safeties, there's lawsuits and all of that. So we're sort of with you. I'm not here to badger you, but I'm a bird watcher. And so I'm just sort of an interested observer, and I sit with a scope and I look up on the hills. I said, are those trees moving at all? Any sort of movement in the leaves? And so those are just observations. And the last one comes from my neighbor, John. He wanted to know on Bircham 4, after the event, this is the mine, since the wires that connect have no roads, how do you inspect those wires after an event to make sure they're safe? That's a technological, and I think I've covered all of my cheerful questions, and it's 10 to 2 if you're curious.
Oh, wow. They really made a run for it. Okay. Yeah. We're going to have him talk about Bircham 4. I do want to say I appreciate that feedback on the personalized message. So you're absolutely right. The amount of messages that we have to push out via text and phone and all that type of stuff, it's really prescriptive. It's really set and everything. But we do have all the other methods that we communicate: social media, elected officials. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah, for sure. And we'll definitely take that feedback back too. We've got a couple of other ways where we give more specific messaging to the different areas, but I think we can definitely bring that back to our team and make sure that we're giving even more, especially for the frequent flyer type circuits. Yeah. And then for Bircham 4.
My name is Damian Provencio. I'm the Distribution District Operations Senior Manager over Bishop Mammoth and Ridgecrest. So these service centers that serve your communities. So specifically for segment 4, so we have a couple of segments on the Bircham that are for the protection of our employees, are daylight patrols specifically. And unfortunately, segment 4 falls under that criteria, where it is specifically a daylight patrol, in addition to segment 5 and segment 6 as well. So we secure a helicopter to do those patrols because of the terrain. And if we cannot get the helicopter, then the patrols take quite a bit longer because we do them with side-by-sides, right? No, that's what I'm saying. The helicopter is going to be strictly a day patrol, right? That I believe is segment, that's 4, right? 2? Okay, so Ravana is going to be segment 2. No, that's that. So you will see boots on the ground on segments 1, 7, 2, and 3. So those are, we call them, we could do night patrols on those, right? And those other ones that I'd mentioned, 5, 4, and 6 are strictly day patrols. So whether it's a helicopter, which we prefer because it'll expedite the patrol, and if we cannot secure a helicopter, then we have to revert to side-by-sides, and which will take quite a bit longer.
Yeah. Yeah, and inch by inch, mile by mile. I know we have our veg manager here. We also do pre-patrols on all this to ensure that there's no imminent risk or hazard that we're aware of before going into a wind event. I want to call out a couple of things, and then I wanted to ask the county, who's graciously offered to MC the questions coming in through the chat. So let me call out a couple of things here. First, drone technology, drone in a box, out of line of sight. Those will be nighttime capable. That will help with restoration patrol times. Segment 4, there's a lot of risk carried on that line. Fire, typically carries uphill in the Eastern Sierra. It is true. These riparian corridors coming down these canyons where those high winds are could carry a fire right into town in no time. We had 2 fires recently within Mono and Inyo County, the Silver Fire, the End Fire. This risk is real, right? So I want to call out 2 more things. First, it may be shocking to some to hear that, yes, it is one person making the decision to de-energize you. It is a massive team of experts and data being used in that process, but our incident commander is the one ultimately making the decision to de-energize with the best science and data available. So I would honestly like to ask each of you, knowing what we know and how we monitor and how we ingest data from other agencies and our internal data, what would you do in that circumstance? I also want to call out really quickly, sir, with your hand raised, you mentioned our obligation to serve. We do have an obligation to serve. And we are not like the insurance companies. We cannot just pull up our poles and wires and leave the state because the risk is to serve. We're working to serve you every single day. It takes time, it takes capital, it takes outages. We're trying to do that. And lastly, I want to say something else about restoration patrol. You may have noticed that we had some support from deputies in Mono County this evening. I want to call that out because there's been both fire pager. Looking at you, no? Okay. Okay. A lot of volunteer firefighters in the room. Because these same people that are patrolling the lines, trying to restore power, yeah, they're live field observers. They augment data to our IMT. These are the people that are taking the call at 1 a.m., leaving their families, going out, driving in a blizzard to restore power. And they've had accusations, threats made at them. And frankly, I don't expect that of anybody in the room. I think everybody's behaved very nicely this evening and politely, and you've vented, and we'd like to hear it because I think you have a right to. I think you have a right to be frustrated. We are not providing the level of service that we would like to serve. We're trying to work through that. So I just wanted to say that real quickly because our restoration patrols, these are your neighbors and my brothers, right? So just wanted to add that. And your hand is raised. So if okay, so maybe 2 more from the crowd and then pass to I want to make sure the people viewing from home can ask a question as well.
Well, I just want to start with saying thank you for being here. I don't envy you having to deal with such a difficult circuit. You all started and inherited this circuit because I was part of the design. I don't know of anywhere else in all the other places I've lived across the country that has power outages, even a tiny fraction of this, right? It's extremely difficult. You guys are working hard to fix it. One of my big takeaways from tonight, from you, Jude, was we expect PSPS to increase 20 to 40% more in frequency and up to 2x in duration. And the message that I'm getting is we need to increase our resiliency, right? No, I think they're listening. That we need to increase our resiliency, right? And so you mentioned the Self-Generation Incentive Program, the SGIP, for the first time just a minute ago. For the Bertram Circuit, because this is such a unique situation with how awful, I mean, I think everybody can agree that it is. Is there anything that you guys are looking into to help all these different communities increase their own self-resiliency? Like an increased SGIP for the Bertram Circuit, so that way we can get all these homes, the Mesa, some of these different homes that need power, so that way their food doesn't constantly go bad. They can't leave town. They can't flush the toilet. They can't generate water. I mean, it's bad. It's expected to continue, only increase in frequency with this recalibration of the risk tolerance level that was just made within this last year. I mean, it's insane. Is there anything that you guys are doing or looking into or can look into to help address this resiliency in the communities? Maybe increasing the SGIP, doing a big outreach, be like, hey, how can we help get you guys continuous power? Because this is a problem not just for everybody's day-to-day life, for medical issues, for pregnant women that are at home when it's 90, 100 degrees at home, which was our case this summer with no AC or power or anything like that. Elderly population that's also dealing with that, with the real health risks that that entails. And this is expected to continue at this higher rate of frequency and duration.
Yeah, Rosa, I'm going to pass the microphone, talk customer resiliency, and thank you. And the short answer is yes. We're looking at, we already have programs stood up to help our most vulnerable populations, our access and functional need, AFN, income eligible. We're looking to expand our programming, and we are looking at highly impacted communities and circuits as part of that. Yeah, well, yeah. Yeah, I'll pass to Rosa and customer solutions to answer some of that. But the homework for you that I have is to first update your outage notification preferences. If you or somebody you know has a medical condition, please enroll them in our medical baseline program. It's going to open up opportunities for critical care batteries at no cost to them. We are looking at vulnerable populations. We stand up as part of our IMT, a dedicated resource department that works with local county AFN departments. So please do that. I know you've already done it yourself, but for the audience, please do that. And then I'll pass to maybe first Damien and then Rosa.
Just to So just to address some of the concerns about what we're doing on the circuit, we're actively looking at the Bertram. We know that this is one of the worst performing circuits because of PSPS in the company. So I mean, we look at with Ryan, with Matt, with other individuals, what we could do, right, to upgrade this infrastructure. We've already talked about the covered conductor, that process that's been going on for quite some time, and it's going to continue into next year while we're actively working with our, not only the Edison crews, but also contractors to upgrade all that, not only the poles, but the conductors themselves. But we're looking at apparatus as well. What other segment can we add? We were just talking about adding an additional segment to be able to isolate another section. And then upgrading the infrastructure, the current infrastructure that we have will give us the capability to isolate different sections depending on the wind and the other elements, the humidity and what have you that takes place. So all that coming full circle will hopefully mitigate the issues that you're having on the Bertram moving forward.
Thank you. I'm Rosa Perea. I'm the senior manager over our PSPS customer support and accessibility team. I don't know if we can go back to the slide where I actually had the battery backup programs, but we do have a critical care battery program for our medical baseline customers that live in high fire risk areas. We have an in-event battery loan program for customers that don't qualify for medical baseline, but still need to power a medical device or assistive device during events. And you saw the table in the back for Rolling Start. They're one of our DDAR centers, and they are actually here with applications for medical baseline program, and they have batteries for customers that qualify for them, where you can take them home tonight. So if you think you qualify for medical baseline, definitely stop by their table before you leave. We also have rebates for portable generators for residential and non-residential customers that live in high fire risk areas. And quickly, one of them is up to $600 for customers that purchase power generators that are enrolled in our CARE, FARA, or medical baseline allowance program. Another one is up to $200 in rebates for customers purchasing a power generator that just live in a high fire risk area. There's also a $150 rebate for portable power stations for those of you that live in high fire risk areas. And then back to the self-generating incentive program, so SGIP, that provides incentives for large battery energy storage systems like Tesla, LG, Panasonic, wall-mounted home systems or larger whole business systems. And that does have limited funding. It opened in June this year. And it will close to applications by the end of this year. So if you're interested, definitely recommend you look into that. We do have a resources slide that's at the end of the deck that we'll share with everybody who's here and online. And that has links to all of these battery programs. And like Matt mentioned, we are looking at new programs for highly impacted customers that have AFN. So we're still working through those details, but that will include some rebates towards permanent battery storage systems for those on medical baseline.
So last question from the room, and then we'll switch over to the Zoom.
Hi, I'm Bill from Rovana. I've been a ratepayer there for 25 years. You guys have done a great job. You're the ones who are keeping the lights on. So, like, you're the ones who are really doing the work. You brought up capital that went into this project, and I'd like to know how much capital went into the Bircham project. And then second, I want to know who decided that much cap go in, and how was the schedule for the project? Because the schedule for the Bircham project determines how many, to some extent, how many nights we spend in the dark. And third, I just like to say, you know, that's a big investment for a company to do the Bircham project. You know it's a big one. But the thing is Edison International declared a stock buyback in February. So we're less important than Edison International stock buyback. And of course, we all know the history with PG&E, who actually killed people to fund their stock buybacks. And they were convicted of a felony. And the judge ended up saying after 5 years that they were incorrigible. So that's not SCE, and that's not any of you guys, because the work you're doing is good, you're producing. But the thing is the people who made the decision are kind of above your pay grade. And so I'd like to get an answer on that.
I'm gonna try to take a couple of those as best as I can. And I don't know if we still have Ted on the line and if he has those capital numbers in front of him, but I certainly don't have those hard dollars in front of me or the nitty gritty of how that schedule is made. The scheduling for these is, as you guys know, is enormously complex. There's the windows, there's the permits, there's, getting all the approvals, and it's very complex. So I will see if we can get those numbers and more nitty gritty information for you on that. I am not a finance person. Generally, the holding company and the rate and the stock dollars are different buckets than capital investments, generally at a very high level. And if I tried to explain it more than that, I would absolutely screw it up. But absolutely, you're concerned. Absolutely, it is very difficult and it's very tricky to see those kinds of dollars and those kinds of profits on one spreadsheet, and then capital investments and ratepayer rates and dollars on a different spreadsheet. It's enormously complex and very confusing. I absolutely hear you on that.
Hey, I can add a little bit. Sorry if I'm breaking in on top of anybody there. Just looking at this screen that I've got displayed here, the Bircham circuit is almost 50 miles of cover conductor already installed, with a bit more coming. The approximate run rate for us on cover conductor is about $800,000 per mile. So you could do the math, close to $50 million invested on the Bircham circuit alone since we started this sort of wildfire mitigation activity in 2021. Crystal kind of is, she probably shared as much as I could share intelligently about the broader capital investment plans. I will share, as you guys probably also know, Edison, while a private company, is a public utility, and all of our investments are, approved by the Public Utilities Commission through our general rate case, stakeholder process, many interveners, and I'm not trying to deflect, but it is, it's not willy-nilly, at least in that regard. We do try to broadly, generally schedule things and prioritize things on a risk-informed basis, whether that's sort of the PSPS reliability risk component or simply the wildfire risk component. And what you'll see if you look broadly at our covered conductor deployment is that the areas that got covered conductor first are the areas with the highest wildfire risk. And that might not necessarily be Bertram, even though the winds are so high and PSPS impacts are more significant. The way that we're required to quantify risk by the Public Utilities Commission, which then leads to that prioritization, has, unfortunately, for the case of the Bertram, the wildfire financial components outweighs some of those reliability impacts. It's not a great answer, but we're doing our best to try to make sure that we're interspersing this reliability work, this more reliability focused work, with the wildfire risk reduction work.
I always have more to add, but respectful of folks' times, I think I'll pass to the county, maybe take some of those questions from the at-home audience. Thanks, Ted.
Can you hear me? Okay. First question. August 14th and 15th, Starlight was shut off for well over 12 hours without any real wind. The Starlight weather station never even recorded 20 miles per hour in that whole time. Mustang Mesa was not shut off at this time, nor was any place else on the circuit that I heard of. What other weather stations do you use to make your decisions for this circuit? And can we be provided with the addresses of all those weather stations that make up the decision matrix for the Bertram circuit?
Ted, can you back me up? You're closer to it than I am, perhaps. But like I said, I know that there are 14 weather stations installed on the Bertram circuit. Those are publicly available at SCE.com/weather stations. You can actually look at those live field readings, look at the 24-hour, 48-hour summary that help to inform our decision-making process. And that's an example. I think in that example, you said portions of the Bertram circuit were de-energized while other portions were not. This speaks to our attempts, our ability to segment where possible, where technically feasible, to keep as many customers on as possible. So I think I'll maybe ask you, Ted, to hop
Matt,
in close to it.
The Starlight is down here on segment 4, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so segment 4, for the person who was asking, has currently showing here these 4 weather stations tied to its decision-making process. So Round Valley, Tungsten Mine Road, Horton Creek, and Rovana South.
Ted.
Yeah.
Bump down one, segment 6. And sorry, while you're pulling up 6, just a quick comment to that question. All of our decision-making process and the weather data used in making that process is publicly available in our post-event reports, which are submitted to our regulators at the CPUC. So, it's going to be hard to, I think, pull up every single incident if customers have specific questions, but it is available, and I encourage you to look at that data.
Yeah,
Sorry,
and I was just going to share I'm sorry about you're right, Bertram 6, and I was reading those weather stations thinking that doesn't sound like the right area. Yeah, so Bishop Creek 2 weather station and McGee Meadow weather station are the 2 that are applicable to the decision making in that area. So one is, like the person mentioned, I think really close to Starlight here. This may be the one that they looked at, McGee Meadow. A lot of the comments today about the circuit geometry and how you have to get to that area. I mean, it looks like this other weather station, Bishop Creek number 2, is sort of situated midpoint in that line between Starlight and where the source of the power is, which is at the substation here. So what I suspect, I don't know, is that maybe there was lower winds here in McGee Meadow, but Bishop 2 might have been howling, and or Bishop Creek 2 might have been the one that tripped that. So that again, that's something, takes a bit more to go diagnose the specifics and look back at that specific time period. But that's just an example of some of those. Hey, why is the power off when it's not windy here? Sorry.
Why not put more sensitive or hazardous areas underground?
Well, this actually speaks in part to the previous question, which what is the cost of the capital? And well, first of all, technical feasibility. We live in mountain communities. It is not feasible to underground every inch and mile of the service area. And then in terms of cost, which was your question, it's roughly, I think, $800,000 per circuit mile to insulate and harden our overhead infrastructure, as opposed to roughly $4 million per mile to underground anytime we're doing ground disturbing activities. And again, if environmental and regulatory law were not prohibitive, we could do this. We could finish this work tomorrow. We're operating within the confines of law, California and federal law. So that's part of it. So just imagine the difficulties in installing underground in some of these areas. I'd also add, just in terms of reliability, we talk restoration patrol and getting power back on. I mentioned the winter storms that we see in the region. Underground is also not more reliable. In fact, in these communities, we see frequently outages due to intrusion and flooding in our vaults. If it's underground, if we can't see it, we can't find the problem and then fix the problem. So we see extensive, extended outages with underground. So there's also a reliability aspect to undergrounding. I think that was the question. Why don't we underground it all? Yeah.
You mentioned the speed of deployment. If we would not underground a section that we put on covered conductor, we wouldn't be able to recover those costs. We're not going to double bill for a project. You've heard that most of our projects are scheduled to be completed in the next year or so. We have underground projects planned through 2029. So if we were to go to underground, you potentially would have 4 additional years of unmitigated risk. And we're not willing to accept that. The biggest advantage to cover conductor really is the speed of deployment. We can get this community protected much quicker. It's not just cheaper, but it's much quicker to reduce the risk. And we wouldn't be able to increase those thresholds, which means your PSPS exposure would be continued through 2029.
And lastly, in terms of undergrounding, it needs to be entirely underground. And that's another piece, is our systems are overhead, transmission, distribution to feed our substations and then go underground. So yeah, again, Starlight's a great example. That community is effectively entirely underground, but it has, I don't know how many miles of overhead conductor to feed that community, traversing BLM, DWP, Forest Service managed lands.
You kind of already answered this, but once you complete all your planned work on the Bircham circuit, how common or preferably uncommon will PSPS events be?
Oh, yeah. I'll pass to Jude for this one. I did open up earlier in the presentation too. This is first and primarily drawing down the risk of ignition associated with our infrastructure for public safety. Secondary to that, it is increasing the wind speed thresholds with which we de-energize facilities as we remove the risk of blow in to our lines with covered conductor and are looking maybe more closely at fall-in risk of heavy trees. I'm not going to be able to provide a number. Nobody is, but Jude, you're closest to this.
Actually, I was going to ask Ted or Ryan, because really what I'm not as astute about is how much is underground. I'm sorry, how much is covered conductor now? So I don't know how much better it's going to get, because some of the fully covered, you already have some fully covered segments. It should be better when the entire circuit is covered, but again, we still have the risk. You saw the photo of or picture of the tree blowing into the lines. We still have at 40 miles per hour sustained, or 56 miles per hour gusts, significant wildfire risk. And so we will still be doing PSPS. And maybe Ted or Ryan, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah, thanks, Jude. You hit it, and I'll just share. I mean, predicting how much PSPS might happen is fraught with uncertainty, because the weather is never the same in a given year. And often what we'll do is say, well, if the weather's the same, then this. So we can do things like that. And when we have fully hardened a circuit or segments, for instance, there's been substantial improvement and reduction in PS usage. Every area is different. This area does see winds exceeding our current covered conductor thresholds. I emphasize current, as that's another thing that we're continuously looking at. Uh, Long story short, removing removing that bare wire, removing the hazard of things, really lightweight things blowing into our lines and starting a fire is going to be a humongous benefit for this community, and both of the goals that Matt mentioned, for reducing the potential for ignition and reducing the need for PSPS. So I can't give you a number. I can't say, hey, this year it's 15. Next year, if it's fully covered, it'll only be 1. That might be right, but it's also might be wrong. It's really really tough, and I sympathize with that. I wish I had a better way to predict and quantify that. It would help me a lot with justification for prioritization a lot of this work. But unfortunately, there's just a lot of variables, and even with our brightest minds, it's been really hard to come up with accurate predictions of that sort of thing. But it'll be a big help. I wish I could give you better than that.
If SCE first hardens the lines in the windiest parts of the Bircham circuit, wouldn't that strategy bring fewer PSPS events to the less windy areas sooner?
Yes and no. So I think we called that out as an example where we've added circuits where we've fully insulated and hardened the grid from the from the substation or point of origin to the end user customer. So yes, we are deploying that method, and we are trying to be as surgical as possible with our switching procedures, our protection settings on our equipment to segment and draw down risk where we have fully hardened, and make decisions appropriately based on that. But again, this was a nice venue to host this meeting because it was in points in between, but this is extremely long. The circuit transects 2 counties, several federal management agencies, a couple of 1,000 feet in elevation. It's a long circuit. It's part of the issue.
Well, you kind of already answered this. Are future plans in place to put existing overhead lines underground on the Round Valley portion of the Bircham circuit?
I think we did
You
get
did answer
that.
that.
Yeah.
Why don't,
Not just the Bircham circuit, but any egress is a primary criteria for undergrounding. I mentioned we have projects built out or planned through 2029. We have a web page, sce.com/tug, targeted underground. And it'll give you a list of all the projects that we have planned. But that said, we did get our general rate case funding cut for undergrounding by 1/3 by the PUC. I think it was already mentioned earlier that we can't just do these upgrades willy-nilly. I think that was the term. So our most recent GRC, the PUC did limit the scope, reduced it to about from 600 that we proposed to about 200 miles roughly. But it was about 1/3. So we have to be prudent with the amount of resource that we have available. Their rationale, I can't speak for they can't speak to the PUC. It was, it's a process. We have interveners. A lot of it has to do with prudence, right? We have to be a prudent system operator. We put in a funding request every 3 years, call it general rate case, and that's what we are approved to do. Now we have projects planned out, through 2029. We just need to figure out how to deploy those given the limited resources that we were given. We'll probably go back in another 3 years.
why don't you use drones to check the lines?
We do.
Last question. The others are comments. My concern is that there are times when we've had high winds and the power stays on. Case in point, May 12th and August 26th. May 12th, we had winds of 40 miles an hour for hours and gusts up to 80 miles per hour, yet the power remained on. Why?
Because the fuels weren't there to create significant risk. It goes back to the slide I showed that we need both extremely dry vegetation and also high winds. if there are high winds and the vegetation is not dry, conceivably there could be a spark, but if there was a fire, it would have nowhere to go. It would have no energy and it would die out, or, you know, be easily, it wouldn't be something that would be significant safety risk. So we're not just looking at high winds. We're always looking for the three-legged stool of high winds, low humidity, and dry vegetation. When it's green out, there's less risk of fire, and we don't do PSPS. When it's brown out, we do.
Jude, I was just able to confirm the questioner was correct. It was very windy that day, but as you predicted, and you're correct too, the fuels, the FPI piece of the PSPS equation, they were low, and I suspect in August that wind may have been subsequent to the rains that occurred in August. I didn't catch the date to be able to confirm, but that would be my suspicion for August.
Yeah, I'll just add, this is again not subjective. It's based on the fire triangle, that three-legged stool is what we're looking at. On one hand, I'm hearing from customers that we're being far too conservative in our approach in de-energizing customers. On the other hand, I'm hearing that winds are high. Why aren't you turning it off? I recall that incident. I also serve on Bishop Fire Department, as does our one of our planners is battalion chief for Bishop Fire. He responded to that call. Effectively, how it works is we did not see the other conditions necessary for rapid rate of spread and in that community. So we can't have it both ways, is what I'm saying. So I think the perception is that this is subjective and there's somebody just willy-nilly, to borrow that term, take that term back, arbitrarily turning off power. It's not. It's based on a very objective, data-driven process. Ultimately, what happened with that was exactly what should have happened. Dispatch brought in Bishop Fire, dispatch brought in an SCE troubleman who visually went to the area, de-energized a small segment based on his judgment at his discretion, based on imminent hazards to make the scene safe for first responders and fire departments and you folks. That's how it works. That's how it should work. Beyond that, we do have a process which is not public, which is by which we work closely with emergency managers and fire departments, and we can have this conversation offline and how you can communicate with our business resiliency and our duty manager if there's an imminent risk of wildfire or hazard that we should be aware of. By all means, we'd like to be made aware of it.
There's a follow-up question. Isn't 80 miles per hour over the uncovered line limit?
Yes, but that we did not have the other elements there. I think we answered that.
I think we have a couple more questions in the room. So I think we're done with the questions online. The rest is comments. So we'll start back here. And I think we have the room reserved till midnight. So everybody's good. Good to stay till midnight? Okay.
Rhonda, we need more cookies. Okay.
My name is Josh Plum, and I'm one of the owners of Pine Creek Village. Several of my tenants are in the audience tonight. They're very concerned. And when there's a PSPS event, a lot of times the questions are directed to me. And I don't have any answers for them most of the time. So that's one of my frustrations. And I don't know, there might be in the slides or something, but is there a way for the tenants or your customers to talk to somebody that's not just the 1-800 number, or emails or things like that? Like, I have some personal emails to SCE, but I've kept those private. But first question. So I don't know.
I can
Different question.
quickly
I could
jump
give you
in.
Matt's personal home phone number. Newborn, so he's up all the time.
Yeah. We've got it.
Okay, well, and what I was going to suggest, I don't know if this is your relationship with your tenants, but I don't know if they're what we call master metered or if they have their own meters.
They're their own meters.
Okay, because I did want to mention a program that we have, which is address level alerts, which isn't relevant, but it's a good opportunity to mention it, which is if you would like to sign up for alerts for an address other than the one on your account, we have a system on sc.com where you can sign up for alerts for up to 5 other addresses. So this would be, if you were master metered, this would be something your tenants could do. It's also if you have elderly relatives and you want to make sure that you're checking the to see what's going on in their home, or even just neighbors you're worried about. So it just seemed like a good opportunity for a plug. In terms of a personal way to reach a person, I think it's difficult given our numbers. It's why we do social media, and we do respond when people reach out on social media. We do respond to emails. Our consumer affairs team, and one of our representatives is right behind you. That's their work, is that they respond anytime we get an email or a concern. So that's really, the other thing is our public safety partners, jurisdictional, city managers, city government, have access to our public safety portal, so they might have a little more information for you. Let me see if other people have things to add besides Matt's phone number.
Yeah. One add on, I think, to say, first of all, communication can always be better. Messaging can always be better. It's something we are constantly working towards. I also sit through the, we have, like Jude mentioned, our public safety partners have access to a portal and access to our business resiliency and IMT. In addition to, where am I going with this? Oh, I was going to say, and sorry, as part of that effort, we thank you. We have coordinating calls with the emergency managers and with CBOs, critical infrastructure providers like water systems or other downstream utilities. And I sit in on those meetings. And one thing that I want to call out is the average wait time to speak with a human being during a PSPS event, when granted the phone's ringing off the hook, because there's a large volume of people looking for information. 2 minutes to talk to a human being. So yes, we need to push customers towards customer service and to the outage center. And then, just like we did tonight, understand what does our policies mean in reality. There's no update to share often because there's no update to share. Our guys are patrolling lines. They could find a tree down. We can't provide an estimated restoration time. They could be hung up on some other issue, imminent, urgent, emergency. And then lastly, I would just add, work very closely with Jerry Tinksley at Round Valley School. Bless her, because we had some problems with our outage customer alert notifications. I just want to add that address, SCE PSPS, great for sub-meters customers to get address level event alerts. Also great if your child goes to a school district, child drop off, pickup, very serious. I have a kindergarten now. I get that. We need to know where our kids are. So just wanted to plug that real quick too. And Josh, I know you got another one. So
I got a few.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate the noticing. I feel like this past year it's gotten better, especially the one that says we expect the power to be shut off in the next 4 hours. Typically we get that and within 20 minutes it's off. I don't know if there's a way to extend that, because we do have a community water system that we run at the village. And our policy now, as soon as we get that, we go and we have a button that we push that's fill our tanks. So that way we don't run out of water and lose pressure. So I do appreciate that. I understand your concerns with the fire risk and the need to shut off the power for the PSPSs. But a lot of times when those happen, I go on to the outage reports and it says there's like, I don't know, 150 customers impacted or something. It's a rather what I consider a small number of customers. And I don't understand why it takes so long to get the power restored.
I don't know if you heard Matt, but circuit miles. I mean, you have 150 customers that live along a very, very long circuit. So they have to patrol all of it. They have to patrol the circuit, and not just the homes of the residents, but all the space in between. And you guys have a lot of space in between.
Yeah, but it seems like one thing that you guys can control is, these things are coming 4 days out, week out. And then as you get closer, why don't you, I don't know, like just get a whole bunch of people up here, get an army up
So-
here. That's one thing that you can control. That's not environmental or things like that.
So we do. We actually have pre-staged people before, so they're staged before, during, and after the event to get started immediately on the patrol. That would be up to the district.
I've got
but-
85 homes that
Yeah.
are in this village. These people, they know everything that's going on in that area. They never see anybody from SCE out there.
Well, I'm going to ask the district to help out, but I do want to add,
And then also the other question was before was the helicopters or the has to be done in the daylight. Like, I don't think that works with Rivanna because our power does come on at like 1 a.m.
So yeah, I mean, that means we're using a truck. That means we have managed to get up there and not had to wait out the helicopter. I want to talk a little about the 1 to 4 hour notification because this one gets us both coming and going. The point here is we try to send that notification out. It's supposed to land between 1 and 4 hours. As you said, sometimes it's you have less notice. There's once we trigger that notification, it also means that for some of our customers, this means they're running out to put a generator somewhere. So we have to be kind of really careful in the other way too, because like our cellular customers, it's every time we say you're at 1 to 4 hours, they truck a generator out to the pole so that just in case, and then maybe we don't turn it off. So we
do the same thing with our water system.
Right. We're
So, I
trying.
mean, my maintenance guys
Yeah.
are on the call. I mean, it could be whenever we get that, it's like, hey, go push the button right now.
So I think part of the issue is here, we try not to turn off power. So we have half a dozen people who sit in our ops looking at the wind as it hits a threshold, and it goes 80, and it goes on our data sheet. You can see that it goes 80%, 85%, 90%, and we're watching. We're going, should we wait 10 more minutes, or do we have to turn it off? What's it looking at? We call the meteorologist. What are you seeing? And we're like, okay, we're going to have to turn it off. So we wait until the very, very last minute for each segment if we can. So that is sort of the punishment of good intentions. There is sometimes we don't on that 1 to 4 notice. We try not to send it too early. We try not to send it too late. But I'm giving you some inside baseball
I
here.
appreciate that notice.
Yeah.
I mean, regardless if you give me 20 minutes or not, it helps us a lot.
Yeah. And let me ask,
but
let me ask the district staff to talk a little bit about how many people we have ready for restoration.
So we do post patrols, pre-patrols, and LFOs during an event. So depending on how many circuits we have in PSPS will determine our manpower. So we do, if it's forecasted out, the 3 days, like I said, depending on the manpower, we'll get resources up here from down south. We'll determine how many we need. Specifically, we either run 1 man or 2 man per vehicle when they do these patrols.
And how many vehicles?
That depends on the circuitry. If it's say it's only the Bertram, right? And now depending on how many segments are off. If we only have 2 segments off, we might run 4 vehicles, 2 per segment, right? So it's going to vary.
Why can't we run? I mean, when Faith Electric comes out to do some work, they've got 20 trucks. They've got an army of people out there.
Right, but
why can't you guys do that when you know, hey, this is coming?
I
think a lot of the issue is the restoration of the power. I think everybody understands the fire risks and maybe aren't so upset about the power being turned off. But what upsets people is how long it takes it to get restored.
So
that's something that's in complete control of SCE. There's no environmental, how much does it cost it costs $800,000 to do a mile of conducted line, but then you're running 2 vehicles per segment out there to turn the power back on.
So we're speaking on apples and oranges here when we're talking about Faith crews, because they're reconductoring a circuit. They might be doing a mile of line, or they'll probably have yeah, 6 crews out there say.
That's what I want SC to
conductor
do.
this line.
I want you guys to look like Faith out there. I want to see an army out there restoring the power.
Yeah, they're,
I mean, that's something in your control that would help a lot.
so when you see one individual, that might be an LFO, right? The live field observations. The individual that has a kestrel that's getting reads out there, they're going to different locations, getting reads during a PSPS event, right? But like I said, once the power goes out, we do send individuals out there to restore this. And depending on whether it's a day patrol or not, that's going to determine it as well.
Yeah, but it's like we had a few weeks ago, it was 4 days in a row. It was clockwork. Went off at 3. We got the notice about 7 o'clock. Winds have died down. Power came back on at 1 a.m. Why can't that power come back on earlier? I understand because you have to go inspect the lines, but that's what I'm saying. Let's get more people out there to inspect the lines and get that power turned back on.
Yeah, there's specific individuals that can do it. Not all individuals or all Edison employees can do circuit patrols. So there's specific individuals that can do it. And those are the ones that we have doing it. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Hey, let me give you the mic.
Josh, right? All right. He made a good comment earlier that you have people that are, at the control disk when you're going to fire the stop. One of them making a simple phone call, there's a 90% chance you're going to lose your power in the next 2 hours. Would probably trigger you into pushing the button to get the reservoir with water filled, right? Instead of just seeing the notice and then suddenly it's shut off. So a little bit of hands-on by one of the employees, just a heads up, your power is almost certain going to be turned off, rather than suddenly a notice comes and is turned off within 4 minutes. A little bit of hands-on for 150 people. I live in Rovana, so I'm sort of singing for Rovana, but some sort of personal communication by one person to somebody, whether it's Josh, Felipe, or Jim, just to say, trigger the action thing, rather than having to watch your text message that goes to everybody. Am I unequal treatment? Is that, anyway, that's something you should consider. Since I have the mic, is there any difference? Sometimes the wind howls out of the north. Most times it's out of the south. Does that affect anything, or is it just wind is wind, or does wind direction affect your thinking? It's more often out of the north than the winter. That's it. And I hate your acronym. PSPS is too much like PTSD.
We're not good at, I will agree with you. We're not good at acronyms either, or like SCE.com/tug. That's one of my other least favorite ones. Okay. The wind direction does make a difference depending on how abnormal it is. So we saw this actually further south when we had that hurricane and hurricane remnants coming in. So we know how our infrastructure performs under wind conditions that it regularly sees. So if you do start to see highly irregular wind directions, that is a higher level of concern, and we pay much more attention. It doesn't necessarily change the thresholds. It does change our level of concern for potential storm outages, though.
I do appreciate you guys. But I had an experience with one of your guys driving up on our property. He flew right by the house. They usually stop and say, we need to check something. I thought, well, that's odd. So he went and checked the pole because he was checking to see if they could turn it back on, right? And so I went out and asked him, what are you doing? And he said, I'm in a hurry because we don't have enough people to check when this happens. And I was like, why? So, I just experienced that personally, and just a few more men out there to make it come back on a little quicker, maybe.
What I was going to say, and with Josh, your comment too, thank you. Thanks for the feedback. I understand. I appreciate that. I wish we had more folks too. I think staffing is an issue where we live. I think it's an issue literally for every agency which operates in the region. We're not alone in that. We got to send away for socks and underwear where we live. Helps a long ways away. So we do bolster our staffing plans and plan around our forecasts to try and staff up. But yeah, thank you. And I hear you. I wish we had an army also.
Do we have any more comments online or questions online?
Hey, Matt and team there, I just wanted to make a comment on the patrols too. It's not going to be immediate relief, but we're working on really expanding our use of drones. I know it was asked and answered there in the room about why don't you use drones? And the answer was we do. And in fact, we're trying to use them more. We received a waiver from the FAA to be able to perform what's called beyond visual line of sight operations with our drones. We can also operate the drones that we have at night because of their capabilities. And I think both of these things combined will really work to reduce those restorations time. I'm not going to say that's a promise and it'll make everything come back on immediately in the Bertram circuit. There's a lot of procurement we have to, there's actually like wait lists for some of these drones coming off the assembly lines right now. But we're in those lines and we're working to deploy those as rapidly as we can. We'll be working with the district there and their troublemen to make sure that they're trained to operate those. And I'm hoping that all comes much sooner than later. But just as an example, another example of where we are really trying to improve our response times on these things. It's not something that we're sitting idly by and just accepting. I echo Matt's thank you for those comments, and but also just reassure you that we're not just thinking it's satisfactory.
Does SCE have an estimate how much the wildfire risk will increase over the next 5 to 10 years? The Mesa is medium fire risk now. Will it be going to high risk anytime soon?
Well, actually, I got people fighting for the microphone. That's great. That's what we love to see. I that just jogs my memory, though. One of the things I opened up with was to say that SCE is playing God. We understand how essential electricity and reliability is to every aspects of your lives, from how you cook your meals, refrigeration, etc. Omnipotence is not a faculty we possess. So we wish we didn't have to do this also. It's very hard to predict what's going to happen with the weather. Call it climate change, call it extreme weather, call it whatever you're comfortable with, whatever term you're comfortable with using. We're seeing the trend and it's significant. And again, it's borne out by other agencies, partner agencies in the region, not just SCE. And then the other thing I'd like to say in terms of omnipotence is if we're measuring our success of this program merely based on the fires that we know we prevented when we turned off the power, we are going to fail. Maybe not all the time, but a huge chunk of the time. We cannot do that. We are not trying to solve for every potential fire. We are trying to use our best judgment, and we cannot measure the fires that we didn't start specifically because we didn't start them. So it's not a metric we can provide. And that's what we're concerned with this. So sorry, you just kind of jogged my memory. I can't give a accurate number because I'm not God. So sorry, but Crystal may be closer to him than I am.
No, absolutely not. That is a great question. Obviously, I mean, you saw the graph at the beginning. The trends are not good with fire activity. That said, in any given year, the fire activity is so dependent on a number of factors, including La Nina year versus El Nino year versus a high snowpack year, precipitation, and so on and so forth. So you're still going to see high variability year to year, even if you see a general trend towards more fire activity decade over decade.
Our senior fire scientist, Tom Rolinski, is part of a lot of work looking at where we're going with climate change and risk and fire risk. And we are doing long-term trends, and those trends do factor into our long-term planning. So we are not unaware or impervious to thinking about how the changing climate is affecting where we're going and our future risk. It's part of the work we do. So we also have a risk team that looks at long-term risks to all of our business, and including climate change. And this is one of the elements of it.
So we don't have any more questions online. One more in the room.
So my question had to do with trying to improve communication between us. Like,
all of this information that you presented today would have been very valuable to have for us to trust you as a provider of electricity. I mean, we don't know what the circuit, I didn't know what the circuit looked like. I tried to find it online, couldn't find anything. I couldn't find anything about what was affecting the decisions to make PSPS choices. So there's a lot of, I feel like today we've learned a lot that it would have been nice to know at the beginning of the year, right? And then there's more. So, you talk about, I have a couple of examples here of some really bad PSPS communication. So, or what appear to be decisions. So, we're dependent on your decisions, and you want us to trust us that you're making rational decisions. And the woman here addressed a case. So on June 10th, let me just grab it here. On June 10th, we had well, I live in 40 acres. Okay. So I don't know, because of the way your sections work, I don't know how this impacts everybody, but I live in 40 acres and our power was shut off at 9 o'clock. At 9:56, 56 minutes later, we got the notice that the wind event, that the PSP event had ended. And for that event, we were out of power for 6 hours and 40 minutes. So basically for a 56-minute window of there being a concern, our power is out for 6 hours and 40 minutes. So that, to me, that's a problem for us not to, that's an indicator that we have no understanding, and it makes it seem like you're making arbitrary decisions because something, and then another event, we got an expected notice a minute before the power was turned off. So a minute before the power is turned off, we got an expected notice. And then over that 2-month period from June to August, we had, let's see, our power is out 14 times, but there were 11 expected notices that never resulted in the power being turned off, which is good. I mean, that's good, but it sort of builds distrust. It builds misunderstandings that makes us question how you're making decisions. And on the other thing, that there are several emails and texts that I've gotten where the dates are wrong in the texts of the messages. It's like they're just badly, the information, wherever it's being pulled from off of whatever database, is wrong. And so if you want us to be able to trust we're trusting you with our electricity. So I think there just needs to be some improvements and some better communication and more access to some of the information that you provided here.
So let me kind of take a bunch of these things. First, I'm very grateful for your comment. And in fact, we're here. We realized that we need to do a better job of going into our communities and talking. And talking is minor compared to listening. We have to do the listening tour. And that's why we are here in your extremely lovely community. And in fact, we all wanted to come up here. But so I'm grateful to hear that, because yes, we could do a better job explaining what PSPS is, and we need to have better tools, and we need to and we're going to go back, and our pals in corporate affairs, Matt and Ray, are going to talk to our CorpCom and corporate affairs and make sure that we're doing as good a job as we can about telling you all these details. And I think one of the things that we have not done well is given you the technical information. We kind of either make it so technical no one understands what we're talking about and thinks we're just blowing air, or that it's so simple that it doesn't make any sense either. So trying to level that's kind of why we're here. June, I think what you're saying is that we turned off your power for 56 minutes and then took 6 hours to restore it, something like that. Yeah, that that's the restoration. And I sort of vaguely recall this from June, and this was extremely frustrating because it's like, could we to have an hour in the risk area and then take 6 hours to restore? I'm with you. That was early in June. Hopefully we're getting better at this too. Yeah. 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 No, yeah. And I think that we continue to calibrate. So I hear you. And when we heard of that one, yeah, it's like, really? So we're with you on that one. It's like, you're right. I mean, it's like, it doesn't make sense. I mean, yes, if it's really dangerous for 56 minutes, we don't want you at risk, but it does seem like really dangerous for 8 hours is different from really dangerous for 56 minutes and then 6 hours to restore. So yes. And then, on the notifications, it is a system. It's and we're continue to try to improve it. We continue to try to make it make more sense, and happy to listen and work with you. It's been an ongoing process over the course of several years. And we're hoping that our social media and other ways of reaching you will also help support the notifications. But I'm happy to hear more about how the notifications are hitting.
Yeah, I have something to add too. So 1.5 million customers in high fire risk area. We sent a customer newsletter prior to traditional wildfire season in Southern California and the Eastern Sierra in June. I don't know how many of you opened it, looked at it. That information was included there. Website updates to kind of take a little bit more of a look at the actual grid telemetry of how our system operates. Some of those system improvements are happening, coming to SCE.com, and we're working with that because I think customers like yourselves are probably not the minority that you want more information, and we're trying to get it out there to you. So thank you for that comment. And then we hosted multiple company live streams with an invitation to attend to every customer in a high fire risk area in our service territory. This is in advance of wildfire season because we are really urgently, asking customers to be informed, engaged, and to be resilient. And then lastly, I'm, I'll own it's blame me. If the local messaging is poor, I work with local and tribal government. I have been pounding the pavement since really Q3 of last year. I attend literally every single unified command meeting. So folks from fire agencies, police, sheriffs, I share updates quarterly at those meetings and rely pretty heavily on local and tribal government to help amplify our messaging. And in that, I hosted a public meeting in literally every single regional planning advisory committee or RPAC in all of Mono County. We hosted a Bertram specific meeting in, I think it was maybe Q2 of this year. We had a meeting right here in May, I want to say, in this room. This is how many people attended, apart from the RPAC board, 0. So messaging can be improved. I can help to amplify that, but my ask of you is to please be engaged, informed, because it's very hard for me to knock on every door in the county. Clearly.
Hey, Matt and Jude, is it okay time to talk?
For you, Ted, yes.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, all. I know it's late. I was just gonna comment. The website enhancements were discussed. We're looking at much more substantive improvements there too that could potentially help folks understand more in real time what's exactly going on, how close they might be to a de-energization. Hard to tell exactly what we'll be able to display there right now, but given that all the information that we use is public, kind of aggregating it in a way that is more useful for any customer to go view is one of our goals. And so again, none of these things unfortunately are like snap your fingers and there it is, but we are engaged with a third party sort of data visualization outfit to help with that. So if it just maybe it's just a glimmer of hope, but I also am cognizant of the communication deficiency, and there's always a um, good justification for more and better. So we're working it. I'm sorry that it's not done already.
It's pretty common knowledge that most wildland fires in California are human caused, about 90%. The other 10% covers a wide spectrum, of which one would be utility caused. Do you guys have any idea how many fires annually are caused by either SCE or DWP or Pacific Gouge and Extortion or whatever?
I can share that all of the utility, at least for the utilities that the California Public Utilities Commission has jurisdiction over, which doesn't include LADWP. All of the ignitions and fires are reported on the CPC's website. The percentages, though, are a little bit harder because I guess you'd have to go look at the entirety of ignitions through a source like CAL FIRE, and then sort of subtract out or whatnot each of them. But it's a small percentage, to your point. Less than 10% of all of the
It is a
fires.
pretty small percentage. The reason I ask is, does your agency track annually, how many fires your agency started?
So yeah, so we have information basically when there are failures on our circuits and on our systems, right? And so so that could be right over a paved parking lot where we have a circuit fail, and had that been in a different location, that would have started a fire. And so yes, we track and we have information. I think it goes down to my understanding, and from what I've seen, down to the circuit by circuit level of ignitions or failures. And so that could be a failure that doesn't result in what would even be described as an ignition. And then, yes, we do also track when there's an ignition as well.
Okay. So have you noticed okay. So you yourself can't separate the wildland incident from a parking lot incident? Or you can?
No, sorry, we can, right? So the system is looking at all of those failures and tracking all of those failures. And I think and this is a point of argument depending on who you talk to, right? Is like, so there's a failure. And if it's over a parking lot, right, it's a failure. If it is over a wet patch of grass, that's a failure, right? Because there's not an ignition. And so to your point, tracking the ignitions, yes, we do that. And there's all sorts of metrics and, it's somebody's palm tree in their urban backyard versus 5 acres versus 100 acres versus 10,000 acres. So I don't think I'm answering your question correctly though. Or what do you?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
So the second part of my question is, has there been a noticeable increase over the last year, 10 years, 20 years, whatever, in wildland power line utility caused fires in California?
So I'm going to suggest, rather than answering that question, I suggest you go to the CAL FIRE website, and they list the most the deadliest fires over the last 20 years in terms of.
Well, I don't want to know the deadliest. I want to know the total of.
The deadliest in terms of the most acres burned, the most structures. So that is the basis of the slide that Matt showed you. Take a look at it. Look at which fires were caused by, in fact, the witch fire was caused by a utility fire, but look at the utility fires and you can kind of get a sense. And then I want to go back to something I said earlier, which is, and I think maybe this is the point you're making, is we've always had wildland fires. We've always had forest fires. We haven't always had fires that are so deadly. And so to the answer is, do utilities cause fires? Yes. But do utilities cause significant fires? There have been many more significant fires over the last 10 years.
That's not my.
So
I understand that there have been a lot more significant fires. Having spent 32 years in the fire service, I understand that. I also understand why they have gotten bigger and more deadly. and it's got nothing to do with you and your power company. My point is that if there has been statistically an increase in utility caused fires, why? Is it
So
because the population in California is growing, and so their utility companies are stringing more line? Or is it because your infrastructure has gotten to a point now where parts of it are so old that it fails at the drop of a hat? So that caused the increase. And if there's no increase, wonderful. And if there's been a reduction, then that makes your point even better.
yeah, so I'd suggest that it is either flat or lower, to your point, as a proportion of the causes. I was just starting to pull up some of the data here that I was referring to on the PUC's website, but it is all here. One of the things that's a little bit unfortunate, I don't know, it's not unfortunate, just inconvenient with the data itself, is that all of the utilities and the regulator have gotten a lot more, I don't know, scrupulous isn't the right word, because it's not like we were purposely being unscrupulous before, but uh, we've noticed them much more often. We're much more um, uh, focused on, oh, okay, that might have been caused by the utility. So the focus has kind of intensified in the last few years, which may show sort of when just count the numbers of things that have been reported, it may look higher, but I would suggest, similar to what you're suggesting, when looking at all of the fires and the proportion caused by utility, that it isn't going up. So I'm not sure if that helps you, but and I've been working in utility wildfire risk management now for 6 years. I haven't seen any signs of it increasing, and like I said, the data makes it a little bit inconvenient, difficult to definitively say if it's going up or down. But when you try to get down to apples, I would suggest it's going down.
Yeah, I'll put it more bluntly than Ted. We have not seen any information that utilities are causing fires more frequently than in the past. If anything, staying flat or going down. To Ted's point, there's a lot more data now on all of this than maybe 20 or 30 years ago. But I'll put it more bluntly than Ted. We're not seeing an increase in utility caused. As you well know, even more so than we do, the fires are bigger and more destructive. And that is very concerning, and why we're doing what we're doing, because we don't want to be that ignition point.
I have one thing to add, and I know I'm getting the social cue. We need to wrap this up. I'm going to get the shepherd hook out here. But yeah, sir, we acknowledge we're, maybe that we have fires caused by many different reasons: lightning strikes, errant campfires, a cigarette butt, chains dragging on the highway. We cannot mitigate risk down to zero. That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to be responsible stewards of how we operate our system. And frankly, I would agree. Yes, we're responsible for risk associated with ignition with our electric equipment, but that's only one piece of the fire triangle. And there's many partner organizations, some in this room today, that are doing landscape level fuels treatments in these communities. Sir, back to the earlier statement, I have never refused to attend a Firewise Council meeting or provide comment on behalf of the utility. Open invitation. I'm willing to come and support, and we are supporting a lot of that work. Edison International, through our partners in the White Bark Institute, with the Forest Service, with the BLM. Yes, sir, you have a background, a history in fire. We are not trying to solve for every variable, but we are trying to support. Currently, we're in the second year of a 3-year, $1.5 million grant cycle with our partners at the White Bark Institute, in addition to other philanthropy that we do in the region to help run that, drive that risk down. So currently, yes, we're looked at as being responsible really for everything. So we're taking that very seriously and reducing risk associated with our equipment. Yeah. Okay. That's right. Shareholders, holders, we're all paying for it. We're all in the jackpot together, and we're working like hell to get us out of it. With that, Sandra, anybody who cares to? Okay, one more.
Yeah, it's kind of three parts here. Do any of
you get
folks,
one?
Do any of you folks live in the Bertram circuit?
I have colleagues in the room that are on Bertram.
Okay, well,
currently in this room who work for
then they would
Southern
understand that this is largely about outage fatigue. And it's not just the PSPS, it's the maintenance outages. Sometimes there's 2 times a week. On top of that, we'll have a PSPS. On top of that, we'll have an outage that you'll look on the website and you'll say, we don't know about, but we're investigating. So sometimes it's 3 or 4 times a week we're experiencing this. So when you hear all this, you have to understand that. And if you just sympathize with us, understand that, you know, sometimes if there's a maintenance coming up, it might be best to cancel it. Also, have any of you ever tried to call your own service for customer service?
Yes.
It's impossible to speak to a human. Impossible. Unless you take the emergency route, like wires down, you can't speak to a human. That's frustrating. And last, if you guys change your criteria for PSPS recently, if you did that, why aren't we increasing staff to go out and do these inspections? And if we're seeing it more and more and more, is there somebody looking at this going, you know, we need to really pay attention to the Bertram circuit and these people that are on it. And, you know, we're doing the upgrades that you're mentioning, but, you know, for a temporary period of time, we need to add some temporary staffing to go out there and train them to go do these inspections.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll speak on,
Thank you.
The second one. Yes, I actually had a huge snafu a while ago and I tried to get customer service. It was very tricky. It was very bad. So I very much empathize with that one. On the last one, so we've got our district manager out here. I'm coming from Rosemead and Irwindale. Irwindale is where we have our emergency operations center. And I am committing to this group because your district manager and your district folks who live out here, live and work out here, they're doing the best they can. I'm committed to going back to our team and reevaluating how we can proactively help the district, right? Because they're putting as many people as they can on it. And hear you guys loud and clear, especially for these frequent circuits. You have my commitment that I'm going back to the team to be much more aggressive and not just say, hey, do you guys have enough people? Yeah, we got enough people, but proactively say, okay, can we push more people out there? Can we move people around? Let's do that so that, you know, we don't have our district folks trying to be heroes out here getting it done as quickly as they can with what they've got, but we're kind of, quite frankly, forcing help on them when we need to and making sure that it's not just like, yeah, I got it, but we're really helping them to get more people out there. So you have my commitment that we're going to reevaluate that and see what we can do to get more people out, because to your point, it is forecasted. We know it's coming and we can do that. So you got my commitment on that.
Yeah. I'll just add, I hear you on the outage fatigue, and I, you know, tried to address it. I hear you. On Monday, we have a planned maintenance outage. On Tuesday, we have PSPS. The flip side of that is that we all cumulatively in this room have made it loud and clear that you want us to do more faster, and we cannot get this infrastructure in the ground without outages. So I appreciate the comment. I fully sympathize. I understand. We do try to bundle outages wherever possible, do as much work as possible on sections. So yeah, just thank you for the comment, Mike. I appreciate it. I hear you. I feel you. And believe me, I'm losing sleep on this as much as my colleagues and everybody I'm sure in this room. Yeah.
Yep. SCE produces hydroelectric power at Pine Creek Mine, Bertram 4. Can covered conductor electric lines connect Pine Creek Mine along Pine Creek Road down to Ravana, Pine Creek Village, the Round Valley School, and Mustang Mesa?
So that's not our hydro facility. I believe that's private. I don't, that's Pine Creek Mine, I think operates that. We do island and isolate and act islanded like a microgrid for the entire region with our hydroelectric assets. In the region, we saw that used to great effect most recently, I would say, with the Infire in Mono Basin, where we lost our transmission feeds to North County. We were able to pick them up with operating our Lundy project. The other issue with Plant 4, I meant to mention it earlier, is frankly, we have permitting issues to actually get in and remove some of the vegetation that we would like to remove to draw down risk there. It's a problem for us, and we're trying to work with our regulators to potentially resolve that. And the other issue with Pine Creek, that wind comes ripping down the canyon, dense riparian area. It could bring fire right into Ravenna around Valley, 40 acres in the flash of an eye. So it's frequently being monitored for PSPS. Not nearly. Yeah.
Cool. I'll keep it short and sweet because I know this is the last one. Congrats, by the way, on the newborn.
Thank you.
Yeah. I just want to reference 3 websites. The first is going to be SCE. The next one's going to be the CPUC regarding the SGIP. And then the third is going to be ChatGPT. So I'm going to roll right now. So the first one is going to be SCE.com under self-generation incentive. So it says home energy storage solutions to help our customers be better prepared for outages and public safety power shutoffs. We are offering incentives available through the self-generation incentive program. These systems are designed to offset your energy use and work as backup batteries to provide power for your home when an outage or PSPS occurs. If you live in a high fire risk area or other qualifying communities, you may be eligible. Okay, so number 1, why should I install a home energy storage system? Be prepared for a PSPS. Installing an energy storage system can help you prepare for a PSPS or other outage types. A battery will use stored grid or solar energy to keep your home running when grid power is disconnected. So that's from SCE, self-generation incentive. Then this one's from the California Public Utility Commission, .california.gov. So it says participating in this program, SGIP, in preparation for the next wildfire season, the California Public Utility Commission through 2024 for this program. This funding includes prioritization of communities living in a high fire threat area, communities that have experienced 2 or more utility public safety power shutoff, as well as low income and medically vulnerable customers. Medically vulnerable meaning oxygen or CPAP machine. And then right below that, it says the best way to get started in accessing SGIP is to reach out to an installer who can help navigate the application process. So I think this goes back to what you were saying on the end about a backup battery or a Tesla Powerwall potentially being a solution, because you kind of fall in one of 2 categories. You either get your power from the grid and will continue to experience the grid shutdowns in the PSPS, or you have your home powered off of the grid with a backup battery and solar. That's what I'm seeing from these websites. So could you elaborate a little bit on these incentives and the SGIP?
I actually don't have all the information for SGIP, but I can talk to my SME and get back to you.
Yeah, I'm not the expert, but no, take a stab at it. Why not? Wrong answers only. Yeah, generation incentive program like it. Well, you just read off the eligibility requirements. So SCE is hiring, so you can sit at this panel with us. You did a great job describing that program, and we do encourage our customers to apply and take advantage of those programs. Like I said, local government partners have taken advantage of this. Like I mentioned, the firehouse in Mono City, many firehouses throughout the county, and Supervisor McFarland, I heard you provide during public comment. My colleague was there at the time to say there's other ways to crack this nut. I think part of the other issue is that our obligation to serve. We do have an obligation to serve. I'm going to just step away for a second here. Hear myself. And even if that's one customer, we need to provide that grid, capability to them. So we do encourage customers to take advantage of those programs. that are available. We are looking at potential deeper discounts, potential no cost solutions for at-risk and income eligible customers on the most highly impacted circuits. We're looking at all those things. Yes, it's a yes, and please, by all means, I think frequently folks, sir, you mentioned we have an obligation to serve. We do. It's not 24/7. That's outages happen. Outages occur, especially in rural environments like this. And we're in the building and maintaining the grid business, right? That's what we do. That's what you're asking us to do. So a lot of this really does fall back on partners and residential and business customers to take advantage. And we are looking at, you know.
Okay. I have.
Sorry.
Okay. So hi, my name is Pam Bolden. I'm the executive director of the High Sierra Energy Foundation. We do a lot on efficiency and working with public agencies, et cetera. We are the ones that connected some of our public agencies to take advantage of SCHIP, and as well as some residents at the time when well pump and low income and fire were all eligible for that. I will just say everything in this space is super complex. I've been in it for 10 years and I understand like both sides of the story and regulatory, and, you know, I don't defend the CPUC or Edison or anyone because it's just really complex, and, you know, they're trying to just serve power. And I've been to transmission, and I just can't say enough about just the complexity of the whole topic. I will take it as an action item because we are a community-based organization that serves Inyo and Mono counties, that we will dig in with Edison on the SCHIP program. It's tough because there's that funding is there, but funding changes very regularly. And so I will take that as my task to learn more about it. You can all reach me. So it's High Sierra Energy Foundation, bold@highsierraenergy.org. Certainly Matt can push you our way, and whatever information that we can gather and push it to our communities, we certainly will take that responsibility to do that.
I wanted to thank you all. Thank you for bringing up SCHIP, because that is indeed one of the ways in which we can have our customers get more resilient, our residents, our communities. So I have two sort of requests of you. One, please do look out for your neighbors. One of the things we learned doing this sort of tour is how much we do have to take care of each other. So we're so happy to have you here today. You've heard the negative, the worst things. And now please do take that back to the community and let them know kind of where we are and help them become more resilient. You look at our website. The second thing I want to mention, because it hasn't come up yet, is after every event, we do file a post-event report 10 days after the event, which goes onto the CPUC website, and you can look it up. It's CPUC post-event report, SCE, just Google it. And that'll give you all the data for each one of our for each one of our events. And if you want to be a good consumer, look at this, and you can see what our decision-making was for each event, and you can see where we failed. We actually will tell you when we missed our notifications, and we'll tell you why we turned off power. And you know, the best consumer is the most educated consumer. We want you to understand what we're doing and why. So we want to thank you for everyone who gave us your time this evening, and gave us cookies and coffee and water and your attention, and for being so candid and also cordial. So thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone, for your time. This is only 2 hours over. That's fine, because they drove all this way. Why don't you make it worth your while, right? But the whole point was for you to get some information, hopefully learn something you didn't know. And also, I think it's really important what you're talking about, taking care of your neighbors. Now, I can't speak for Inyo County, but Mono County has a way for your neighbor to do that you're looking out for. So if you can reach out to the Health and Human Services Department, and I'm sure Inyo has something very similar, those people that are in need, they can get on a list and they go and check on them. So I don't know if my neighbor does this or not. More than likely they do. But if they don't, they can help. Also, I want to thank Matt for always being there. No matter what time you call me, I usually call him. And being very responsive and trying to work this out. I really do. And also remember that when the power goes out or something that we know is happening, your community centers can be opened, and we do that. Though you know what the worst part is? Nobody comes. Okay? Because you've all found a way to take care of yourself, which is great, but you all ask for, are we doing something? You need to know. So communication is great. And reach out to your neighbor. Another really important thing is that there's some solutions on here that we all need to figure out, because the wind isn't going away. You know, the next thing is raining frogs, and we're just going to have to roll with it. And the fact that you have things planned for here are going to take time. So what can we do while we're living through all of this? Because the others that have already had hardened communities, it took a long time. And you guys drew the lucky one of having the wind and these issues that aren't as normal. You know, there's a lot of things backed up. And after my 35 years here, and like, okay, I haven't seen that one before. It's usually not just one thing, it's everything combined. So that's where this is really important. The outreach, reach out to your county supervisor. We don't have the answers, but our job is to get you in touch with the people that do. And I think you've learned a lot today. And if you, Matt, if you guys have any secrets on how to manage the tree online for customer service, we'd like to know, and we won't tell anybody else. Thank you all. Don't want to keep you any longer because I know the Great Deer Dodge is happening down the road. Please be safe. Please be careful, and we'll keep you informed of any changes that we know. Thank you.